did you spend your summer vacation? Nearly a quarter of the Mets made their way to Pittsburgh for the All-Star game. And now as the second half of the season begins, the Mets have reconvened in Chicago for their only trip of the year to take on the struggling Cubs at Wrigley Field. For some Mets, the All-Star week was a coming-out party, while for the rest of the ball club, this represents a chance to keep the good feelings going into the second half of the season. At Wrigley Field in Chicago, the New York Mets play the Chicago Cubs. The Mets riding high in the National League East, 73 games to play and a 12-game lead as they begin play following the All-Star break. And a pleasant good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Wrigley Field. Gary Cohen and Keith Hernandez with you today as the Mets start play following the All-Star break, a longer than usual All-Star break, and you wonder whether that makes a difference in terms of the team coming back into play.
Well, it's the first time, it's unprecedented, you had 4 days off in an All-Star break. Not every team had the 4 days off, but the Mets did. Now, in terms of guys with injuries or nursing injuries, Nady, Pedro, they probably would like the extra day. Reyes in that group. A guy like David Wright, who's been red hot, he probably want to not have an All-Star break at all, just keep the season rolling.
So the Mets come back to play, and David Wright comes back to normalcy, I guess you'd say. His week has been a very special one. Finalist in the Home Run Derby on Monday. Home run in his first All-Star at bat Tuesday. David Letterman Wednesday night, another Sports Illustrated cover. And yet, David was on the plane with the rest of the team yesterday and got here for the workout, which he was not required to be here for.
Well, I think it says a lot for David. David wants to be the best that he can be. He's very diligent in being the best player that he can possibly be. He loves the game. And I think that this speaks a lot to his leadership qualities. Now he's 23 years of age. And, you know, his 2+ years in the big leagues. But I think that that's the mantle he's gradually starting to assume. And I think that says a lot that you got a guy like David Wright who doesn't excuse the extra off day, gets on the plane with the squad, and works out.
And doesn't seem to be affected by being the most famous man in the United States at the moment. Meanwhile, while Wright's had an MVP caliber season, the Mets have gotten enhanced performances this year from Jose Reyes and Carlos Beltran, two of their other All-Stars.
Well, Jose Reyes, Gary, we've watched the whole first half. As Jose Reyes goes, as goes the Mets. When he's on base, they score runs, and he's just starting to blossom now. He's nursing that little injury, the stitches in his finger. He's day to day. The Mets need him to get back in the lineup on an everyday basis.
And Carlos Beltran has just been a different guy the second time around.
Well, you know, he's one of the 3 guys with over 20 home runs on this ball club. He's got over 60 RBI. Great defense. If you're going to have any criticism at all about Carlos, is that he hasn't stolen bases, but who cares? With those kind of offensive numbers and the way he's played defense in center field, keep it running that way.
And a stolen base was a big part of Carlos's contribution to the National League's effort in the All-Star game. The Mets had 6 players selected for that All-Star game, and they all had different experiences, and we'll share a little of that when we come back to Wrigley Field and get set for the Mets and the Cubs. The All-Stars return to play here at Wrigley Field. Plenty of tradition here at Wrigley Field, where the configuration has changed a little bit, but Harry Carey's statue still reigns outside the ballpark. Harry was such a huge part of the Cubs, and even though every game here at Wrigley Field through the summer is sold out, Met fans still managed to find their way, as they have really all over the country this year in increasing numbers with the Mets playing so well. You see Met caps and Met jerseys everywhere, and you saw plenty of those in Pittsburgh for the All-Star game, and some of the Mets shared their All-Star experiences with Chris Cotter. Chris?
Gary, you know, you're right, they did, and I talked to Jose Reyes about it. You know, he felt bad that he wasn't able to play because of the finger, but on the same token, he said, you know, it was good to get a couple of days rest just to make sure that, you know, speed that healing up a little bit. And as we've talked about, and we will talk about all day, with him right now, it's really more a matter of getting that glove on. So the rest did him well. He said he was glad to be there, though, because he was able to talk to some of the current players that he hadn't had a chance to meet. I mean, let's keep in mind, this is his first All-Star game. Met fans hope it's his first of many, but he was able to take it all in without having to think about playing and to get a chance to meet some current players that he hadn't had a chance to meet in his brief Major League career so far. So he enjoyed that aspect of it. David Wright, meanwhile, as you just made mention of, was everywhere when you talk about the home run hitting contest and David Letterman. And he said he really started to tire But on the same token, he thought that Paul Duca was tiring as well, and Paul corroborated that story. He said everyone talks about the hitters tiring in the home run derby contest, but when you bring your own pitcher, as David Wright did with Paul Duca, Paul started to get a little rag arm there towards the end, and he started to tire out. But he had a lot of fun, and the one common thread with all these players was not only current players that they get a chance to hang out with and talk to and really enjoy time with, but also some former players. David Wright specifically pointed that Johnny Bench, said he spent a lot of time with him, really enjoyed visiting and talking about the Big Red days and how times have changed from back then until today. Paul Duca mentioned Dave Parker, some of the other great Pirates. Several of the great Pirates from the past were there in Pittsburgh this past week, so Dave Parker was one that really stuck out in Paul Duca's mind. Talked to David extensively about his trip to David Letterman, and he said one thing about Letterman was he's a big sports fan, so he knows a lot about the game and what's going on. And so Dave had to stay on his toes because they told him, hey, Dave might come out of left field and ask you a question that you aren't expecting, certainly one that you might have to think about. So, but Dave said he wasn't that nervous. You know, he was on TRL, MTV earlier on this year before the season began with Cliffy. So he said in the green room he felt comfortable, and Dave did a great job of putting him at ease there at the Ed Sullivan Theater on the David Letterman show. But the common thread really, you know, not just about meeting some current players and some former players they all experienced and shared, but all three that I spoke to, Reyes, Wright, and LaDuca, said they were really looking forward to getting back here. Gary, you mentioned about Wright getting on the team flight, coming up for yesterday's workout. All three of them said, hey, the All-Star break was great, whether they played, whether they didn't play, but the most important thing was to get back with this team that they feel so comfortable with and so close to. And if you read the Sports Illustrated article, you know these guys are tight, and they wanted to get back here and get started with that second half. So all of them eager to get back out there on the field and get going with this thing.
I still can't believe that David Letterman would ever come out of left field with a question. Can you believe
yeah,
that?
Right. Yeah, right. And keep him on his toes. But he's, you know, David Wright, and I said, hey, this is something that you're going to have to get used to because this past weekend, if things continue the way they are, isn't an aberration. He's going to be on a lot of talk shows. He's going to be on a lot of national shows, more than he even has to this date. So, but he seems like he's getting used to it and comfortable enough. For a 23-year-old, he's got a little bit of poise.
Well, if anybody his age is able to handle the adulation and keep a level head, it's going to be David Wright, and he certainly has displayed an ability to do that through all of the preseason attention and the in-season attention that he's garnered, and he may be the most famous man in America right now. Back in our studio, Steve Trachsel and Ron Darling will take a look at David's excellent week when we return.
Hey there, welcome back to our Baseball Day in New York studio here in Midtown Manhattan. Steve Berthiaume along with Ron Darling will get you back out to Wrigley Field in just a minute. But of course, as we all know, David Wright among his 6 Mets selected for the All-Star game. It was his first appearance, and Ron, he certainly made the most of the week. I mean, the cameras following him around everywhere, and he's become a media darling. Well, he spent the week wired for sound, cameras all over him, from the home run derby all the way through his appearance on David Letterman after the All-Star game. Here's David Wright's week.
I got my VP pitcher warmed up. Yeah, I'm warmed up. I'm exhausted. My arms are feeling a little heavy. I'll be all right, though.
So a nice hand. David Wright standing in as our next contestant here in the first round. Great season with the Mets.
I'm keyholing. I'm tired. You got into a great groove. You have a good VP pitcher.
Great VP pitcher. Like I said, I was a little skeptical at first, but he came in and grooved a couple and found my sweet spot.
How tiring is that to do?
I'll tell you right now, I'll never get on a VP thrower again in my life. It's tougher than you think.
You going to be able to crank it up for another round?
I hope so. I'm getting a little old. I'm going to have to go get heated up again, but I feel good.
You'll say, no, esa pelota.
Okay. Now we say, Manny Acta goes, no.
Ah, yeah, but
que no, right?
Yeah.
Who automatically in?
You got it. You're automatically into the next
That's
round.
what I'm saying.
But they count double to go to the semi, so that's why I wanted you to keep hitting them.
Right. I'm good, thank you. That was good stuff.
Oh, yeah, I'm dying.
That was good, by the way.
all of a sudden the Mets are back. First of all, where have they been the last 5-6 years?
Right, I know. I've watched the show. I've heard the rips and the digs and everything. So we know you're a Yankee fan, but it's good to have a Met on here.
Wait a minute. Now, is the team that strong, or is the league a little weak?
No, the team's that strong. Yeah. We have a very good team. We have a good mix. We have a lot of youth, a lot of energy, and a lot of veterans. You know, the Pedro Martinez's, the Tom Glavins's, the guys that provide the leadership. You have to pinch yourself sometimes. Just not only to get to participate in the All-Star game, but to start the All-Star game my second full year, to share the All-Star game with so many different teammates. I mean, I think it's good representation what we've done the first half, and then obviously. Just coming here and doing Letterman. I've been a big fan of the show, and to do a complete 180 and to be able to participate in the show, it's been a blast.
Poor guy has a microphone in his face every time he turns around. I want to ask you about Paul LaDuca, though, and the BP, because LaDuca was joking about being tired. But he was really grooving those pitches in. LaDuca's pitches had this nice motion on them where they went right into Wright's wheelhouse every time. I mean, that seemed to be a big help for David.
For home run derbies, you got to have the pitcher who has that little hump on his fastball or slow ball, whatever you want to call it. But it was perfect for Wright.
Yeah, I don't think LaDuca was actually bringing the heat there, but it worked out certainly for the Mets and David Wright. We take a quick break right now. Gary Cohen and Keith Hernandez will greet you on the other end. Mets baseball from Wrigley Field in Chicago right here on Sportsnet New York.
My glove is a Franklin. I don't know the model because it's kind of they custom make it and they don't put a model on. It's just Carlos got a model, I guess. My favorite baseball movie is, I don't know, maybe The Natural. If I wasn't a baseball player, I'd probably be some computer geek. I was a terrible basketball player when I was growing up. I don't have a favorite pre-game meal. I eat anything and everything pretty much. My favorite professional team was the Pittsburgh Pirates because they had cool uniforms. I spent my off-season in Puerto Rico. My hobbies are scuba diving and dominoes and love movies and love food.
I like that eat everything thing. You think as Carlos gets older, he'll have to amend that a little bit?
Well, he better keep up that work regimen he's got going on during the season. I know that.
New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by ChevyOffers.com, the presenting sponsor of Baseball Night in New York. By Rico, move your ideas forward with Rico dependability. By Honda, see your Honda dealer and discover the great values now being offered. By Aflac, ask about it at work. And by Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance. Visit geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. Future Hall of Famer Greg Maddux, 325 career victories. 34 of those against the Mets. And here's the Chevy Offers Mets lineup that he'll face today. Jose Reyes out of the lineup again today. Took some ground balls before the game today, just trying to feel comfortable getting his injured pinky into his glove. Carlos Beltran has certainly enjoyed his stopovers at Wrigley Field, most of that while a Houston Astro.
And there's the starting pitcher, as you said, Gary, the future Hall of Famer. 7-9 for the season this year. Got off to a 5-0 start in April with an ERA of 1.35. Since then, he's gone 2-9. And in his last 10 ball games, he's 2-7 with an ERA over 6. So it's been a struggle for him, and it's been talked that maybe Father Time has caught up with Mr. Maddux. And the Cubs' Ford defense sets up with Derek Lee back from that fractured forearm and that collision in LA at first base. Todd Walker, Cedeno, Horacio Ramirez, Michael Barrett behind the plate. Pagan, Juan Pierre acquired from Florida, and Jock Jones, of course, was acquired from the Minnesota Twins.
And Jose Valentin back in Chicago, where he plied his trade for many years with the White Sox. And we're set to go. Second half of the year underway, and Maddux, what else? Starts it off with a strike.
Well, he does throw strikes. 110 innings pitched so far, only 20 walks. He's just been getting batted around. What a great career he's had.
1-1 to Valentin. Well, Maddux is 13th on the all-time win list with 325. He's only one away from Eddie Plank for 12th place all-time. And the way he started this year, it looked like he was off to a tremendous start. Gets ahead on Valentin, but as Keith mentioned, over the last 13 starts since the 1st of May, just 2-9. But as you look at the career win leaders, only trailing Clemens, just ahead of his old teammate Glavine. As Valentin hits one the other way and hits it well, back goes Pagan, and it's off the ivy. And Valentin pulls into second base with a leadoff double. Well, there's no wind here at Wrigley Field today. Wind is so often a factor here, either for the hitters or against them. Today the flags are hanging limp, and Valentin hit one off the brick wall.
Well, Valentin, for a power hitter, does go the other way and shows power the opposite field here, and that is how your approach to Greg Maddux has to be if you're a left-hand hitter. He's going to run that sinker out away, take him that way. Nice hitting.
So Valentin filling in the leadoff spot for Reyes. Gets into scoring position, and now Duca, who has really been swinging the bat well. Ever since he bruised that left thumb, it seems as though his hitting has only improved. And he takes a strike.
Well, we've talked about it before. When you get an injury in your hands, your fingers, your wrists, and you're hurting, it makes you concentrate more on the specific pitch to maybe just get one swing, make contact, and get out of that box. So you increase your level of concentration.
15 hits in his last 30 at-bats to push his average over 300, and giving himself up to move the runner, and that is something Duca has done so well this year. Gets Valentin over to third with one out. So the Mets looking for an early run.
Well, we've seen Duca do this. You kind of would like to wait for him to wait to 2 strikes to get the runner over, not give himself up like that. And that was a give up right there, basically, inside out of the ball in. But I also another thing to consider as you look at Carlos Beltran step into the box.
And he bounces one down to Derek Lee, looks home, but Valentin had such a good break off third, he has to settle for the out at first, and the Mets out to a 1-0 lead. Beltran's 69th run batted in. So Duca gets him over, Beltran gets him in, 1-0 New York.
Well, we were talking about the cobwebs with the 4 days off, not Jose Valentin. He got a terrific break on that ball, great heads up. I'm sure it was contact, which the third base coach will tell him, you're going no matter what. On contact.
Derek Lee, a Gold Glove first baseman. He had a notion about throwing home, but Valentin just had gotten too big of a break.
Now, that just goes to show, Gary, that you don't have to be a speed burner to take the extra base. If you've got good instincts and get good jumps, you don't have to have the speed of a Jose Reyes to score on a ground ball like that from third.
So here's Delgado with 2 out and nobody on, and he takes it wide from Maddux. Carlos got hit on the left hand right before the All-Star break and took some hitting yesterday and pronounced himself good to go. Got hit right on the knuckle on the back of that left hand. And Maddux crowds him 2-0. Carlos with 22 home runs, 56 RBIs, but just 8 for his last 52 as you look at the overshift. Two and one to Delgado.
Well, we're going to show you the jump again here. Now watch Valentin left of the screen. Boom. As soon as the ball's hit, he breaks. He also had a very, very good lead at third base. Maddux went into his windup. He was able to come further down the line.
2-2 to Delgado, who's never had much success against Maddux, just 1 for 15 against him. But that certainly wouldn't put him in small company.
Well, we saw what he did in Boston. You know, the Mets got swept there. He hated Boston to hit in Boston. He had a nice series there. He had a bomb there also. And that's where they've been pitching him.
And Maddux gets him looking to end the inning. But a productive start for the Mets as Valentin jump starts the offense. Mets get him over and get him in. Steve Trachsel this afternoon bidding for his 7th straight victory, 6 wins in his last 6 starts. And here's the Cubs lineup to face him, sponsored by Rico. Michael Barrett, a red hot hitter, one of several who have really come alive for the Cubs. Juan Pierre and Jacques Jones have also been hot hitters of late for a Cubs team that begins the day 20 games under 500. Former Mets farmhand Angel Pagan getting the start in left field.
Well, you look at Steve Trachsel of that 6-game winning streak in his last 6 starts. He's improved his record to 8-4, giving up more hits than innings pitched. And overall against the Cubs, only 1-3 in 4 career starts against his former mates.
In fact, this is only his 2nd start at Wrigley Field since he left the Cubs following the 1999 season.
And the Geico Met defense, real quickly. Duca behind the plate, right at third. Woodward, Reyes still on the pine with that finger. Valentin at second, Delgado, Nady, Beltran, and Floyd in the outfield.
Well, here's Juan Pierre, who got off to a miserable start after coming over in the trade from the Marlins, but he has been red hot over the last month. Since the 10th of June, hitting .367 to get that average up to .275. And he lashes one foul.
Well, one of the big deals of acquisitions for the Cubs this year in the offseason was getting Juan Pierre from Florida. And we all know about Wrigley Field here and the high grass. And I don't know if you notice now, it's nicely cropped. And us hitters love to see that. I can tell you a million stories, Gary, about this infield, how long they let it grow. The Cubs have notoriously always had sinker ball pitchers on their pitching staffs because of the short dimensions of the park. And they kept the lawn, I swear, and this is not an exaggeration, 4 to 5 inches long. It hurt Juan Pierre in the first part of the season. And I'll give you as concise as possible. In April and May, when it's cold here, the wind predominantly blows in, and they let the grass grow. It killed Pierre. He was hitting like 210, 212. He's not a power hitter. When it gets hot, the wind starts blowing out.
To third base and a foul ball. Fortunate for Wright, there's no way he could have thrown Pierre out.
Well, they finally put 2 and 2 together in the front office here and said, well, you know, we might as well tailor this ballpark to our ball club. And it's killing Juan Pierre in the leadoff spot. They cut the grass, and ever since they cut the grass, he's been red hot.
Well, the other thing for Pierre is when the wind's blowing in here and outfielders can play very shallow against him, if the grass is also long, well, now you've taken away the balls he's going to hit on the ground through the infield, and you've taken away those little slap hits to left field that he might get. So you've basically negated all of his offense except the bunt.
And from a team point of view, Gary, you mentioned to me before the game, this club is tied for last in the National League in home runs.
To short and right at Woodward, one away. So Pierre retired on the soft liner, and it'll bring up Todd Walker.
So basically, if you haven't got a traditional Cub lineup of the past, over the years, power, you got a team tied for last with home runs, and it stands to reason to cut the grass and use your line drive hitters. I mean, Billy Buckner comes to mind. You know, I would hear him, I'm out of my left ear on a ground ball, start screaming as the grass ate up potential base hits and just screaming at the grounds crew.
Walker shoots one to left, and Floyd is there, 2 out.
Billy would literally, I would pick up his voice around halfway down the line, and he would be going, cut the expletive grass. And I would just laugh. And this wasn't 1 or 2 times. This was for as many years as he played here, every year. You lost so many hits on the high grass.
Well, this is, you know, in some ways not a typical Cub team, as you say, because their home runs are down. Now, part of the reason is that Derek Lee was on the disabled list for the better part of 2 months with a broken wrist. And Lee's been back about 2 weeks, and he has not gotten his power back. Maybe coming back a little early from that broken wrist as he takes ball 1. But it's basically been a lost season here in Chicago, and a lot of people have looked to the injuries to Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor, but losing Derek Lee, that just sucked the whole middle out of their offense.
Well, last year's batting champion, and he's only got 101 at bats, and here we are starting the second half of the season. Missed more than 2 months of the year. Got hurt in Los Angeles.
Got hurt on a freak play at first base. Much like Cliff Floyd got hurt many years ago. Yes. He was playing for the Expos at Shea Stadium. Todd Hundley ran into his arm. Lee had his arm run into, and it broke his wrist and really put a huge crimp in the Cubs season. And Trachsel gets the breaking ball over 2-2.
Well, Trachsel with his patent breaking ball. He wants it away, but watch, it goes inside, stays in and locks up Derek Lee. If you're going to miss on the other half of the other side of the plate on the corner.
2-2 pitch, foul back. Well, there was certainly plenty of speculation here in Chicago during the All-Star break that Dusty Baker might not be here today. Jim Henry, the general manager, had said some things about evaluating things during the break, and it wasn't until yesterday that Henry said, no, Dusty's going to be here. Toward the gap in right center, that's a base hit for Lee. Beltran cuts it off, but Lee easily into second base with a 2-out double.
Well, the pitch is away, and this is why Derek Lee led the league in hitting. He goes the other way so naturally. And he did that when he first came up. He's starting to learn to pull now. He's shortened his swing up. The concern about Derek Lee over there when he first came up was he had too long a swing. But now he's tightened it up. He wouldn't have led the league in hitting last year if he didn't tighten that swing up. And he is some kind of hitter. And there you see that protective brace, I guess you'd call it, on his wrist as he runs the bases.
Here's Aramis Ramirez. It's been a disappointing year for him. 16 home runs, 52 RBIs, and he takes ball one, and that's with Ramirez having picked it up over the last month. But he's been very heavily criticized here in Chicago for a perceived lack of effort, not running hard on ground balls.
Well, if you're not running hard on ground balls, it is a lack of effort. And he is kind of a nonchalant, lackadaisical type player. We almost had that. We had that incident with the third baseman for Florida.
Miguel Cabrera.
Cabrera has that kind of nonchalant look, like it's not a full effort. It can be misinterpreted. If Cub fans will let you know here.
Well, the thing about Ramirez is that his perceived lack of effort is reflected on the manager. And when you talk about Dusty Baker and his tenuous status here, a lot of that has to do with what a manager can do to get players to break bad habits.
Well, I think it's got to start from the get-go. I mean, I've been accused of not running out balls in my career. I mean, I wasn't going to beat out a ground ball. And Whitey Herzog was a stickler on guys running out the ball all the time, no matter what.
3-1 to Ramirez.
And it was something that he just said the first day of spring training that he wasn't going to tolerate. And I remember when we traded over for George Hendrick from Cleveland, and George came over and was terrific for us. And middle of the season, around late May, George just kind of scooted, didn't kind of three-quarter down the line. And Whitey fined him $500. Called George in the office and fined him $500.
Popped up, will come foul out of play. And it's 3-2 to Ramirez. Dusty Baker was enormously successful and enormously popular in San Francisco, but it has not been the same kind of honeymoon here in Chicago.
How many years ago was he 4 outs away from going to the World Series? What a fickle world we live in.
Well, take away Steve Bartman and maybe everything's different for Dusty. In 2003, as the Cubs lost the game in the series to the Marlins.
And I don't think the Cubs were counting on Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor having 8 starts at the All-Star break.
Ramirez keeps the at-bat alive.
8 starts between those two guys, and here we are starting the second half of the season.
Well, Kerry Wood's probably done for the year with a rotator cuff problem, and the Cubs just put Pryor back on the disabled list today. He was coming back from a shoulder injury and then strained an oblique muscle during batting practice on Sunday, so they're going to be without him for a while.
Too much core exercises. I know it's good to do your stomach and your back.
Long turn of bat for Ramirez.
But baseball is a sport of flexibility. Obviously, you look at someone swing, it's like golf. They've got to have flexibility in their hips. Pitchers do a lot of stretching of the stomach, and there's been so many oblique injuries now in today's game, and because of, I just think, too much concentration on what they call core muscles.
Met fan shaded.
dual purpose for the umbrella today. The sun's been in and out, but there's also a threat of rain along the way. But it is warm and it is humid in Chicago. This will be the 8th pitch of the at-bat to Aramis Ramirez. And Trachsel throws the splitter. And he missed with it, ball 4. So after retiring the first 2, Trachsel gives up a double and a walk, and now will take on Jacques Jones with 2 out and 2 on.
Well, you know another thing, Garrett, about this Cub team. They're 20 games under 500. We talked about not having Pryor and Wood, but also offensively. I mean, they're last in on-base percentage, last in walks, last in runs, tied for last in home runs. And then you lose your 2 starters on the top. That spells 20 games under 500, doesn't it?
It's interesting about the lack of walks, though, as Jacques Jones, the former Twin, takes ball 1, because it seems, as long as I can remember, with the personnel changing year to year, over decade after decade, this Cub team has always been a very aggressive team that wouldn't draw walks.
They've always fashioned their club around this ballpark, and that's with power hitters.
Curveball hit to center. Long run from Beltran back near the ivy, and it's off the wall and bouncing away from him. Lee scores the tying run. Ramirez right behind him gives the Cubs the lead. A 2-run double for Jacques Jones, and it's 2-1 Chicago.
Well, we were talking about this Cub ball club fashioning their old teams to this ballpark, the dimensions, and this in Shea Stadium is a fly ball. But at Wrigley, it's a 2 RBI double. You see Derek Lee's going to lope home easily.
Jacques Jones hitting it to just about the same area where Jose Valentin hit his double off the left center field wall. And now here's Michael Barrett, and he takes a curveball outside. Barrett's had a very good year with the bat. He's had a lot of punch, both with the bat and with his fist.
Boy, did he cold cock Persinski? Oh, that was a cheap shot, wasn't it?
Wound up costing him 10 days suspended. Past the mound, but Valentin positioned well. Throws out Barrett, inning over, but the Cubs put together a 2-out rally after the Mets grabbed the lead in the top of the inning. They go to the second, 2-1 Cubs. Every week during the offseason, join us for your connection to the New York Jets as they gear up for another season of gangrene football. Jets Nation Saturdays at 11, only on Sportsnet New York. Now, there are a ton of Met fans here at Wrigley Field. You know, you see Met fans everywhere you go, but I think we've seen more in places like this than in a long time this year. Normally, Met fans don't necessarily travel to Chicago, and if they do, it's hard to get tickets to this place. As David Wright leads off and takes a strike.
I think that's the problem, because this is a wonderful city to come to.
I mean, you expect to see them in Philadelphia. You used to see them all the time in Montreal, and now in Washington. And now everybody's coming to see David Wright. 1-1 to David, who told me that the reason that he didn't win the home run derby on Monday is that his arms got tired.
I heard that.
He dominated the first round. I mean, he was just crushing him. Remember, we were talking before about how he wasn't ideally suited to being a home run derby contestant because so many of his home runs go to right field. Well, he got locked into that pull groove, and he was mashing him.
16? He had 16 in the first round.
And there's his pitcher, who said he also got tired. Duca said he wore out. A little blooper, and Ronnie Cedeno, the shortstop, has it one away. Now, I understand Wright's arms getting tired in the later rounds of the home run derby, but Duca just lobbing batting practice pitches up there.
Well, don't most pitchers, when they give up 16 home runs in one game, aren't they tired?
Oh, they get pulled usually. But he was great. He was grooving them perfectly for Wright's little uppercut swing there.
And, you know, for everybody out there, catchers always throw the best batting practice. Why?
Floyd rips a base hit. Well, Cliff, who was had a couple of terrific games heading into the All-Star break, gets a hit his first at bat.
And this is something that we're going to watch very carefully here. Floyd's second half. He struggled mightily the first month and a half, 2 months of the season. Started to turn it on. Got hurt a little bit here and there, but been swinging the bat good towards the end of the first half. And if he can contribute in the second half, wow.
Cliff at first base, conversing with probably his best friend in baseball, Derek Lee. They were teammates back in their Marlin days as Xavier Nady takes a strike. So why do catchers throw the best BP?
Because they throw right from the ear and over the top, because they got to throw a straight ball to second base. So there's no motion. You don't want a sinker ball pitcher or a guy who has a sailing fastball. You want a straight over the top batting practice speed fastball.
Pitch out, but Floyd's not going anywhere.
And catchers give you that.
I thought it was an inspired choice, frankly, because, you know, normally you have coaches throwing in that home run derby. Ryan Howard, who won it, had Ramon Henderson throwing to him. But Wright chose Duca, and it turned out to be a good choice. Back to the mound with the runner going. Maddux' throw in time, and that'll be easy to turn two from there. Maddux, who wins the Gold Glove every year, 15 of them, has a chance to tie Jim Cott's record if he wins it this year, and he starts the 1-4-3 double play, and the Mets are done in the second. 2-1. Well, he may be 40 years old and he may be going through a rough stretch, but nobody fields his position better than Greg Maddux.
Well, as we say in baseball, they don't give the goal away for nothing. Look, he's in a position to field. Now, the runner was running here, but he knew the ball was hit hard enough to get the double play. He did not hesitate. That, to me, is the best part of that play. That's great savvy. Great instincts.
Well, Jim Cott won 16 Gold Gloves. Brooks Robinson also won 16, and Maddux has a chance to equal that mark if he can win it this year. And there's no reason why he shouldn't, because, you know, those awards, unless you have a severe downturn or an injury, you generally keep on winning them. Angel Pagan, former Mets farmhand playing left field. The Cubs picked him up in a waiver deal back in January, and he's the latest to get a shot at playing left field for the Cubs this year. It's been an open audition since the season began. Valentin runs it down and throws out Pagan, one away. So 1 out and nobody on. Well, you see the Cubs have a better average than their opponents, but they've been outscored by 91 runs this year.
I love your math. You're wonderful. You are right. It's 91.
Well, they're last in the league in walks, tied for last in home runs. Look at that batting average with runners in scoring position. Just awful.
Yes, it has been a big problem for them, and the walks are low.
Ronnie Cedeno hits one to right. Nady getting over quickly, 2 away. So after a 25-pitch first inning, Trachsel gets a couple of outs with just 4 pitches. You look at that offense, and that'll give you an idea why in a National League Central that is wide open, the Cubs nonetheless are buried.
And once again, another division, but this one has one more than the East of a team over 500. A lot of mediocrity.
Well, the Reds have certainly made a bold move to try and enhance their chances, trading away 2 everyday starting players to try and bolster their bullpen. Maddux, a good hitter, 1-1. I mean, that's, you think about that, and that's going out on a limb.
That's a major trade for a lot of people that aren't really, you know, headliners. But it's you look past the headline and you read the meat of the story. There's some key players in there. And we saw Cincinnati, Gary, and we saw the bullpen was just awful.
Well, they picked up Eddie Guardado from Seattle, who had been having a miserable year, and they've installed him as the closer. Now they pick up Gary Majeski and Bill Bray from Washington, but you give up a starting shortstop in Felipe Lopez, who was in the All-Star game last year, and Austin Kearns, who they've always been very high on, Well, they get Royce Clayton back so he can take over for Lopez at short, but now they're going to be calling up a rookie, Chris Denorfia, to play in right field, and they've really, it seems, compromised their everyday lineup to try and help their bullpen.
And they certainly can't afford to have Ken Griffey Jr. get hurt. That's for sure.
Maddux strikes out. Trachsel has his first of the day in a 1-2-3 inning. We go to the third in Chicago. 2-1 Cubs. Now the most advanced traffic information is just a click away with WB11.com's CommuterCast. Get real-time traffic updates on your computer every weekday afternoon at 4. Log on to WB11.com for CommuterCast. Third inning, Chris Woodward playing shortstop again today, and he takes a strike. Jose Reyes is probably okay to swing the bat, still trying to get the feel of that injured left pinky in his glove to play defense.
Don't you get the impression from Willie Randolph, the old school player that he is, that he's trying to goad him, kind of push him into that lineup?
Without question. And that's Willie.
I love him. I love Willie for that.
I mean, the way Willie put it was, you know, he's got to learn to handle the discomfort that he's going to feel in that glove hand. Not we have to wait till this discomfort is gone, but that he's just going to have to learn to live with it. 2-2 to Woodward.
Well, sometimes in the course of a season, in the course of a career, you're not going to feel 100%. You're going to get dinged up here and there. Now, granted, he got spiked and he's got 7 stitches.
And Maddux finds the outside corner, and Woodward down looking. Second strikeout for Maddux. So 1 away.
And you see here Maddux fools him. That's an outside corner fastball. Belt high, probably wanted it down, but he got it on the outside corner, and he set up Woodward. Whenever a hitter, in my mind, gets caught on a third strike fastball, he's been set up by the pitcher.
And that's Maddux's stock in trade. I mean, Maddux is a guy who is probably as deep a thinking pitcher as we've ever seen.
I remember when he came up with the Cubs, Gary, and I faced him as a September call-up. Sinker slider, but he's grown, obviously. He's got the cutter now, which is such a great weapon for him. He knows exactly what he's doing out there, much like Steve Carlton, another great thinking pitcher. Don Sutton. I mean, 4-time Cy Young Award winner, unanimous twice. Only Sandy Koufax prior to that.
You know, the amazing thing is Maddux with his next strikeout will tie Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson for 12th on the all-time strikeout list, but he's a guy who was always pitched to contact.
Yes, and it's something that you wouldn't think that he'd be one of those guys with over 3,000 strikeouts in his career. He's got over 4,500 innings pitched, only 927 walks.
Trachsel bounces one foul.
And that's a big key for him. He does throw strikes. And he's one of those pitchers, the day he pitches, you can't talk to him. He doesn't like to talk to anybody. He gets off into his own little focus, his own little world, and he's normal the 4 days in between.
They call him Mad Dog, but it's much more a play on his name than on his personality as you look at the active strikeout list.
Well, I don't think he's going to catch Randy Johnson and Roger Clemens.
Pedro may catch him one of these days. 3-2 to Trachsel, and he strikes him out. Back-to-back strikeouts for Maddux. But, you know, talking about the way Maddux sets up hitters as we look at the strikeout of Trachsel.
Well, he just throws a little change up right there. Aha, circle change. I thought it was a slider.
But I mean, there are stories about Maddux, as you look at some of his numbers, that in lopsided games, he would purposely hang sliders to give up a home run to set up the hitter for the next time he faced him in a more critical spot. I mean, whether those stories are true or not, but it gives you an idea about just how completely Maddux was focused on taking advantage of hitters and what their expectations are. Valentin grounds one to second, and it's a 1-2-3 inning for Maddux. going for his 326th career win. Maddux leads 2-1. On to the last of the third here at Wrigley Field. Where they can now hold better than 41,000.
Who would have ever thought that?
Willie Randolph looking on as his team gets the second half of the season started. And there you see the bleachers, which are almost totally redone and expanded this year. From foul pole to foul pole, they've added extra rows of bleachers. About the only thing that remains from the old configuration, well, there's the new club that they have out in center field, which is called the Batter's Eye Club, because they have that black draping in front of it. The only thing that remains from the old bleachers is the second tier out in center field right underneath the scoreboard. Everything else is brand new, and they've added some 1,800 seats as a result this year. Juan Pierre lines one to left. Floyd going back, makes the grab. Great play by Cliff Floyd. You got to play shallow against Pierre, and so Cliff had a tough retreat to reel that in.
Well, it's a high sky today, too. Cliff got a little bit of a late break on it, but recovered nicely. And boy, it's nice to be 6'5", 6'6", isn't it?
Used every inch of it.
Nice play.
So he takes an extra base hit away from his former Florida teammate Pierre. And here is Todd Walker, who flied out to Floyd his first time up. 1-0 to Walker. Let's check in with Chris Connor. Chris?
Hey, Gary, here you're talking about this old stadium. It was built back in 1914, and one of the relatively new features are the lights. Now, it's a day game, but the lights are on, so it's a little bit ironic there. Now, they can have the Cubs as many as 30 night games played under the lights per year. And why do they have a limit on it? Well, everything they do has to be approved essentially by the Wrigleyville Homeowners Association, if you will. The neighborhood around town here has to approve the Cubs playing a certain amount of night games. 30 is the limit. They'll play 29 this year, which is an all-time high. Why not 30? Well, Jimmy Buffett has a concert here, and so they had to take one of the night games away.
So it's 29 games and a margarita.
So what are you saying? The neighbors are saying, I'm trying to sleep here.
They're trying to, not enough to where they wouldn't put up with one more Jimmy Buffett concert.
Well, there's always been a contentious relationship between the Cubs and the neighborhood here, and it's unique because you've got apartment buildings right across the street. Of course, a lot of those homeowners benefit by selling seats on the roof, and at times the Cubs have sought to block the view from those rooftops, figuring that they should share in the revenue that's created by them. And in fact, as they've built up these bleachers, they've obscured the view from some of the rooftops. And the fans here love the fact that Wrigley Field is here, the folks in the neighborhood, but they don't like too many night games because it takes away from their parking and their sleep, if you will. 3-2 to Walker. So the relationship between the Cubs and the neighborhood here is different than it is really anywhere else in baseball.
And when you talk about the Cubs, you're talking about, of course, the Chicago Tribune, which owns the Cubs. I thought they had a litigation where they settled, where they have to divvy up proportionately the revenue.
Woodward throws out Walker 2 away. Wrigley, the second oldest facility currently in use in the big leagues. Finally played under the lights in 1988. Mets were involved in the first one.
You think Mr. Wilpon would like that figure right there for the new stadium?
What can you get for $250,000? A couple of luxury boxes out in a park somewhere.
If you're lucky.
Derek Lee takes a strike. Lee double to right center his first time up. Derek Lee, whose dad Leon and Uncle Leron played in the big leagues. His dad played in Japan for many years. In fact, Derek spent quite a number of years going to elementary school in Japan. Said he learned more baseball in Japan than he did in the U.S.
I actually roomed with Leon Lee in Tulsa, Oklahoma in AAA back in 1974, I believe. He got called up from AA. It was 1 month left in the season. I let him sleep on the couch in my apartment the last month of the season.
That was very nice of you.
One of the good men, Leon, and I really enjoyed him.
What was your couch worth in those days?
It was a freebie.
Oh, that's very nice.
Teammates.
Did he cook?
I didn't. I ate at Denny's back there with the money I made.
Glad you could afford Denny's.
Well, the patty melt was awesome.
Hey, minor league meal money doesn't cover a whole lot. Oh. What were you getting in those days?
Well, actually, in AAA, that was Tulsa. I was making $1,100 a month. I thought I was rich.
What did you get, about $11 a day meal money?
It was $10 a day, I believe, in AAA. That's back in '74.
I'll get you a Grand Slam breakfast anyway. Still 2-2 on league.
Keeps Denny's in business. And all those Shoney's in the South.
I don't think that most people have any idea how minor league baseball players live their lives on buses and eating bad food.
Well, the more amazing thing, my whole minor league career, I was single. But there was a lot of players that had families, large families, and they were making nothing.
Lee toward the hole, diving stop by Wright. Can he get him? He got him. Side retired. David Wright with a splendid play. Trachsel with defensive gems from Floyd and Wright gets himself a 1-2-3 inning.
David Wright wowed the world this week with his home run prowess, but his defense, well, at times it is spectacular.
Well, we've talked about his hard work in the offseason and spring training to improve his glove. And that is a fine play diving in the hole. Most of his errors happen on the routine plays when he has time to think about it.
Yeah, he'll back up on balls sometimes or sometimes short on the ball, but when it comes to making the spectacular play, he's all over the place.
Yes, he is.
There's Paul Duca leading off in the 4th inning against Greg Maddux, who has himself a 2-1 lead, and in typical Maddux fashion, only 34 pitches over the first 3 innings.
Just like the old days.
You know, every time you think that Maddux may be done, and there have been a couple of times over the last few years, he'll pitch a game like this and you'll think it's 1994 again.
Well, this is for all the pitchers out there that want to go 3-2 counts all the time. Here's a man that he'll go after hitters, gets ahead, and he'll go for the throat.
Well, Duca bounces it foul. Well, the Mets have to guard against Paul Duca wearing down. We've been talking about it quite a bit, and there graphically is what's happened in Paul's career.
Well, they've given him a lot of off time. Ramon Castro has been in 33 games this first half.
As he shoots one the other way, and Duca has the Mets' 3rd hit off Maddux. A leadoff single in the top of the 4th.
Well, we'll watch with interest next at bat how Maddux will approach Duca. Fastball away. Look how he went right with it. Don't think Maddux doesn't know that. And we'll see if he pitches him inside next at bat. Next time through the order.
Well, here's Beltran, who drove in the Mets' run with a ground out. Beltran had himself quite a time at the All-Star game. Doubled his first time up, stole 3rd, scored on a wild pitch, gave the National League hope in the 9th inning after they'd fallen behind, got into scoring position. And he did something that's become a real dinosaur, in that he played the entire All-Star game. Nobody had done that since 1997, playing all 9 innings. Maddux ahead 0-2. But typical Beltran, he was in the shadows in that game. In the shadows because David Wright hit a home run, and then apparently we're told he was going to be named the most valuable player of the game. until Michael Young hit the triple off Trevor Hoffman and changed the game around. Toward the hole, and that'll sneak into right field. So Duca will stop at second, and the Mets have the first 2 men on against Maddux in the 4th. Well, that takes us to our Aflac trivia question for this afternoon. Hello, Duck. How was your vacation?
Get out of there.
Who are the other 3 Mets before Beltran who've gone the distance in the All-Star game?
I know one of them.
You gonna give it away?
No. I know the other one real well, as a matter of fact. Can't say I care for him very much.
Now, come on. There's Carlos Delgado with 2 aboard. Carlos went down looking his first time up. And he waves at the changeup.
So Carlos still looks uncomfortable at the plate. And this is prolonged. This has been prolonged. The great first month and a half of the season. And that's where they've been trying to pound him. And I think that was a purpose pitch. Let him off with a sinker away. He came back with a cutter. And it's almost okay. If I'm going to miss, I'm going to miss in. Because I can't make a mistake out over the plate on this guy.
And he gets ahead on Delgado with a changeup, 1-2.
78-mile-an-hour changeup. Pretty good spot.
Greg Maddux, now 40 years old, had 17 straight years winning 15 or more. Unprecedented. And he strikes out Delgado for the 2nd time. 4th strikeout for Maddux, and with that he passes Bob Gibson on the all-time strikeout list. Maddux now has 3,118, 1 more than Gibson.
Another terrific changeup sinking. And let me tell you something, for a pitcher, Bob Gibson is legendary. Bob Gibson is spoken in the same breath as Sandy Koufax. And that means something.
Well, again, in Maddux's case, he's not a strikeout pitcher, but he's been around a long time. And has been a great pitcher for so long that those strikeout numbers have built. There's Wright, takes a strike.
Well, he pounded David inside the first at bat and got in his pots and pans, his kitchen, and shattered his bat with a weak pop up to short, and leads him off with a sinker away.
2 on and 1 out. And a line drive base hit for Wright. Duca being waved home. The throw will go to 3rd. It's an RBI single for David Wright, and it ties the game at 2. For David, his 75th run batted in. He started the day 4th in the National League.
Wanted to go away with a fastball. Oh, it came back over the outer half, middle and down. And David's credit, you see Duca easily scoring with the ball in the gap. And in front of Beltran here, that's his read. He's not going to be able to advance to 3rd. But David keeps his shoulder in, not worried about getting jammed his first at bat. He is just really a fine ball player.
Keith, we talked going into the home run derby about Wright and his natural stroke versus the home run derby type stroke. Now that he has come out of that home run derby and he hit 21 home runs in the derby and he hit another one to left field during the All-Star break, do you worry at all about that having any kind of impact on his regular in-game swing?
I'm not overly concerned about it because David's very disciplined as a hitter, very disciplined in his batting practice. I would be more concerned as he becomes, there's going to be a time in his career when he's going to pull more. And he's going to have more fun hitting because he's seen the pitchers. He's going to learn to pull, look for pitches more. And you can almost outthink yourself sometimes, as opposed to just when you're young, you see the ball, you hit it. That's when he's at that point in his career where it might have an effect. But at this stage right now, I watch his batting practice. He's very, very disciplined. He uses the whole park.
Here's Floyd, who had a base hit his first time up. And he takes ball 1. I mean, last year Bobby Abreu won the home run derby and tailed off in the second half, but he was never convinced that one thing had anything to do with the other. People made the connection.
Only is.
But can one day have that kind of an impact on the rest of your season?
I don't think so.
Floyd rips one over the bag and past Lee and down the line. Beltran will score the lead run right to third. He'll be held there as that ball came off the sidewall right to Jacques Jones. The Mets have a 3-2 lead, an RBI double for Cliff Floyd. And the Mets are hitting it hard against Maddux here in the fourth.
Well, we're talking about Floyd, the second half. Oh, he wanted to get it in and it came back out over the middle. So he's starting to miss here in this fourth inning, and they're making him pay. And there's an easy score for Beltran and easily first to third for Wright. It's a question of whether he can score or not, but the ball was cut off. But more importantly, is Cliff Floyd is 2 for 2 starting the second half.
And he got that ball by Derek Lee down the line, which is not an easy thing to do, but he hit it so hard Lee couldn't get it. And he had Lee sharing a little pleasantry from long distance. Larry Rothschild, the pitching coach, visited the mound. And now Nady will be walked intentionally, and they'll bring up Chris Woodward with the bases loaded. So after Maddux got Nady on a comebacker first time up, that turned into a double play. He'll set up the double play here.
Well, I got to agree with this because Woodward has been struggling, and he's basically a reserve player. Jose Reyes is in the ball game today. He's on the bench, and it's been a tough year for Chris, and a very tough job that he has, the toughest in baseball, being the reserve player.
He started the last 7 games, Woodward did, before the All-Star break, and in there again today, which has given him a chance to at least put some at-bats together, but still a bit hard for him to be consistent. Just 8 for his last 55 with his strikeout today. Chance here to do some damage. Bases loaded, 1 out. Mets have taken a 3-2 lead here in the fourth. And Maddux paints the outside corner. Woodward with 1 career grand slam. To second, and it should be a double play. Walker to Cedeno and back to first, throws it away. Wright scores, and Floyd right behind him, and it's 5-2 New York. Well, a tailor-made double play, but Cedeno got wiped out by Nady at second base, and the throw went awry, and Cedeno is ailing.
Well, a little late getting the ball to the shortstop, and the throw is up the line, and we'll watch the slide here. Very clean. Can he touch? Yes, he can. Very clean, very fine, nice play. Clean slide by Nady.
Oh, Cedeno is still down after getting flipped by Nady. So it goes to fielder's choice. Woodward gets an RBI. Second run scores on the throwing error by Cedeno, and the Mets with 4 runs home here in the fourth and a 5-2 lead. And Maddux can do nothing but shake his head, and he is one unhappy customer right now. He felt he should have been in the dugout.
I just thought that Walker was a little tardy on the feed here. Couldn't get it out of his glove. Too many steps. And that's a clean slide. Oh, his foot was planted right there. He can, well, it's moot whether he can touch the base now, but it's close enough.
I wonder if that's what Maddux is upset about, whether he thought maybe interference should have been called, because Maddux was just livid, and he still is a very unhappy customer.
Well, you might be right there. There's Dusty Baker looking at his shortstop. Yeah, that's what he's moaning about.
I mean, he had himself exactly what he wanted after he walked Nady intentionally, got the double play grounder. Cedeno walking back to his position. It looks like he'll stay in the game, but Maddux still talking it over with Mark Carlson, the home plate umpire.
I just thought that Walker was a little slow getting the ball. Now watch Walker, a little slow getting into a shortstop. Now watch him take his couple steps. See, he just kind of, just a little split second, let makes the difference between Nady being a factor in that play and not. And I think it was probably the in-between hop that Walker got.
Well, handcuffed him just a little bit.
But that being said, when you're an infielder in his double play, you want to come in, come in, charge the ball to get the short hop as quick as you can to cut down the time, and to ensure the double play.
Well, Cedeno's all right. Maddux is not. 1-0 to Trachsel. 4 runs have scored here in the 4th inning. 4 hard hit balls and then 2 runs scoring on what should have been an inning-ending double play. Trachsel struck out his first time up. But so it's gone for the Cubs this year. You know, this is a team for whom everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong, all the way down to the All-Star game where they had one player named, Carlos Zambrano, and he couldn't pitch in the game. Why? Because standing around the batting cage, he got struck on the elbow by a stray fungo bat, of all things, swung by Joey Cora, who coaches for the crosstown White Sox. And there's Zambrano, who's well enough that he expects to start here tomorrow, but couldn't pitch in the All-Star game after suffering that freak injury.
And Carlos Zambrano, the ace on this staff, 8-3 on the season. For a club that's under 20 games under 500, to be 8-3, that says something.
You know what? He's been the stealth ace of this staff for years. People talk about Pryor, they talk about Wood, but Zambrano's been there year after year, steadily putting up tremendous numbers.
You didn't sweat through your shirt, did you?
Not yet.
I am soaked through my shirt.
Cool customer, kid.
Jeez. What's your secret?
Trachsel draws a walk, and you know that Maddux is upset because that just never happens. Maddux never walks the opposing pitcher. Well, it's a humid day here in Chicago. It looked early this morning as though we were going to have significant rain, and there's my partner sweating through his shirt.
Could it be because I'm maybe around 15 pounds overweight, or and you're in very svelte?
Yeah, I wish. Take out a couple more organs, I'll be even more svelte.
Oh, that's what I need to do. Take my yes. You think?
You know, as
you think Mr. Littner and Mr. Gowdy would be upset if I did that?
I just, you know, our director today, Dan Regan, as he pans the bleachers, just be careful out there because a lot of the patrons keep their shirts off. If you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
9th man up in the inning, Valentin, and he fouls one off as the Cubs get the bullpen started. Maddux is still talking to himself out there. I mean, he has a tendency to be very hard on himself on the mound, and he'll throw some expletives at himself along the way. But right now, he's, I think, still perturbed about that interference call not made at second base. And Valentin pulls one foul on Maddux's 30th pitch of the inning.
Well, he's lost his concentration. He was so fine with his pitches the first 3 innings, nipping corners, and he's at the stage now in his career, and even when he was solid and in his prime, he always had to be pinpoint.
He's ahead on Valentin, 1-2. And Valentin strikes out to end the inning. 5 strikeouts for Maddux, but that's not a happy Greg Maddux, who heads off to the dugout as the Mets put up a 4 spot and take a 5-2 lead. Be part of the celebration at Shea with Mets season tickets. Prorated packages include postseason ticket purchase options and priority access for season tickets in the new Mets ballpark. To get your season tickets for the rest of 2006, call 718-507-TIXX or go to Mets.com today. As the skies darken above the left field stands, we'll check out our Aflac trivia answer. Carlos Beltran played the complete game, first to do it since '97. 3 other Mets have gone the distance. You knew one of them, Mr.
I knew him my whole life. I didn't care for him.
We do. And your buddy, clench muscle face? Knuckle face?
Knuckle face. Terrible.
And Lance Johnson in his great year in '96.
That was in Houston when I won the voting. I started, obviously. And Whitey Herzog was the manager.
So was that a punishment what he was sending your way in '86?
I think he was trying to wear me out for the second half.
Drive to center by Ramirez. Beltran plays it nicely. One away. So Ramirez putting a charge into one. And Steve Trachsel again in the right place at the right time.
Well, you know what? You take what everybody or anybody will give you. And, you know, he could throw goose eggs the rest of the way here. It's a fine start.
In his 6-game winning streak, in 5 of the 6 games, the Mets have scored 7 or more runs. That's living right. There's Jacques Jones, and he takes the curveball 1-0.
And you certainly got to love it. And any pitcher will take it. That's for sure.
They're averaging 7.67 points per game. I mean, his ERA in the 6 starts with the winning streak is the same as his ERA for the season. Jones goes the other way, but into the well where Floyd tracks it down. If you're not familiar with Wrigley Field, the area in the corner where the outfield actually gets deeper toward the corner, very unusual configuration. That's called the well. That's why it's 355 feet to that left field corner.
It kind of swells back there like that. If that's gives you an idea. It's on both sides.
355 to left, 353 to right. There's Michael Barrett, and he takes a strike.
I don't remember the right field line there in the corner. I don't remember that cyclone fence being there before.
Well, you know what they did, and maybe we can get a shot of it. They've done what they did in San Francisco. Allow fans on the street to watch the game. As Barrett hits one through the hole, Delgado looked a little confused by that ground ball, and Barrett has a 2-out single.
There it is right there. That used to be all fence and ivy.
I mean, people can watch the ball game. Now in San Francisco, they move people along. They only let them stay for an inning or two, but here it looks like they can hang out all day.
They're a little tougher breed here in Chicago.
You think they're pushing each other out of the way?
You want to tell those people to get out? You got to move?
Here's Angel Pagan, who grounded out his first time up. Pagan played at Norfolk for the Mets last year, hit 8 home runs the entire season. He's already got 3 for the Cubs, but here a playable fly ball to Floyd, and Trachsel, after getting the lead, sets down the Cubs in the bottom of the 4th. That is Gas for Free sound. Every weekday this summer, the WB11 is giving away $50 worth of gas for free. Log on to WB11.com for details on how you can win free gas and avoid traffic tie-ups by watching Commuter Cast. Well, threatening skies, you can see there above the left field side.
And that is looking to the west there, over that facade there, or whatever you want to call it, those tiers of seats. It always comes from that direction, from the west.
Steve Trachsel's got a 5-2 lead, but we're still an inning away from an official game. As Paulo Duca leads off, pops the first pitch up. Barrett and Ramirez as the wind kicks up, and Ramirez stays with it.
Well, it's hot and muggy, and down in that tunnel there, and that's an extensive tunnel. It gets nice and cool down there, kind of like a castle dungeon, where everything's cool and you get away from that humidity.
You don't go back to the clubhouse, though, because that's a long haul.
That's a long way. And back in the days when we played, it'd be around 3 or 4 guys smoking cigarettes down under there. Not today. Not today's athlete.
Here's Carlos Beltran, and he takes a strike.
And it's something I wouldn't recommend to anybody today.
It is getting very, very dark here, and the wind is starting to kick up, and we're going to have some rain soon. Beltran 1 for 2. He's driven in a run, and he takes a strike. 0-2. And you get some hellacious thunderstorms in this place.
This is the high end of the high plains here, really. It's flat country.
And Maddux has his 6th strikeout as Beltran goes down on 3 pitches, and it almost looks like the Mets are playing hurry up here in the 5th to beat the rain. As you check out the Jeep upcoming schedule, check out the start time tomorrow, 4:05 on the WB11. National TV game Sunday night, and then we're back with you on Tuesday night from Cincinnati, where the Reds are trying to stay in the race. You see the ominous sky above Wrigley.
What a great park to play in.
And what a great park for spectators. I mean, here are the Cubs, 20 games under 500, and the place is packed on a weekday afternoon.
It didn't used to be that way back in the 70s and early 80s. Cubs would be miserable, and there'd be, what, 8,000 people in the ballpark. And I think it has a lot to do now that there's more promotion of the product. You know, the old owners are gone. The new ones are in.
To center field, Pierre got a good break in, and the Mets are down 1-2-3. So Maddux bounces back with a 1-2-3 inning. We're halfway through at Wrigley, 5-2 New York.
Steve Berthiaume with your Chevrolet Baseball Night in New York update. The A's and the Red Sox last night in extras in the 11th. Bobby Kilty off the monster wicket had. Jason Kendall scores. A's beat the Sox 5-4 at Zito and Beckett tonight at Fenway. Back to Wrigley.
Well, we go to the bottom of the 5th inning here in Chicago. Mets with a 5-2 lead. Half an inning away from an official game.
Well, they're the troops. That's the grounds crew. They are ready.
And they're going to have to do some quick work as soon as that thing explodes. It's only a matter of time, and Steve Trachsel will try and get 3 outs and at least put this thing in the official column before that happens. Ronnie Cedeno leads off, then the pitcher's spot. It looks like Maddux will bat, and then Juan Pierre. Cedeno flied to right. He's really been struggling with the bat lately. First year as an everyday player. Toward the hole, and Woodward on the backhand. Delgado stays on the bag, 1 away.
Well, it's darkening a little bit. The lights are seeming to grab the field as these clouds are coming above us.
That's a great shot of Trachsel with the Merc. Looked like a 1940s movie. Look at that.
The natural.
Steve used to love pitching here as a Cub. As Maddux lifts one to left center. Long run from Beltran, and he tracks it down, 2 away. So now Trachsel 1 out away from an official game.
Trachsel very, very sharp and working very quickly.
Well, with nobody on base, Trachsel tends to work fast. His innings have been quicker than Maddux's so far today. You never would have expected to say that. Well, here's Juan Pierre, who's named after one of Keith's favorite players. Growing up in Alabama and Louisiana. His dad's favorite was Juan Marichal, and that's why he named his son Juan. And Pierre takes a strike.
What a lucky childhood I had to grow up in the Bay Area. I know I've talked about it before, but those giant teams, Willie Mays, of course.
Changeup misses. Well, the rain has begun to fall here at Wrigley. I think it's raining more on the third base side so far. Pierre's 0 for 2, and he slashes one to short. And Steve Trachsel has worked through 5, and we've got an official game here at Wrigley Field. And the Mets don't care now if the heavens open up. 5 in the books, 5-2 New York. Well, Steve Trachsel's timing could not have been better. He secured the final out in the bottom of the 5th inning, and 2 seconds later it began to pour. And the grounds crew has already covered the field. Crowd of better than 40,000 here at Wrigley has scurried for cover.
Wow.
And it is just teeming down here at Wrigley Field. It's an official game. The Mets have a 5-2 lead, so if they can't restart it, it's in the books.
Oh, we'll wait here all night. So we need this rain just to mosey on down east and get the heck out of here.
Well, it's amazing how these things work out sometimes. And, you know, the Mets in the top of the 5th inning looked like they were consciously trying to move through that inning. And Trachsel worked at a good pace in the bottom of the inning to make sure that he secured those 3 outs. And, you know, this is a season in which so many things have gone right for the Mets and so many things have gone wrong for the Cubs. And this looks like one of those things. Mets had a game earlier this season in Philadelphia where they had the rain come at the wrong time for them, and they lost a 4.5 inning game, and who knows, maybe this is payback for that.
Well, Trachsel, of course, we're talking about Trachsel working so speedily, retired the last 13 out of 14. And we are not camouflaged. It's just raining that hard. With the center field camera at us, it's just, we got great, be snipers here.
It looked like a film noir from the 1940s. It's just perfect.
It can rain like this in Chicago. And then, it almost like cleanses the whole area and cools things off once it pushes through. The only thing we haven't had so far is thunder and lightning.
Oh, it'll come. Well, we're going to take you to commercial, and when we come back from commercial, we'll take you to an ultimate classic, the 1988 Mets division clincher against the Phillies. That's coming up when we come back. Well, after a rain delay of a little over 40 minutes, the sun is now shining at Wrigley Field, and we are ready to resume the action. Top of the 6th inning, 5-2 New York, and David Wright takes a strike from Greg Maddux. And I'm a little surprised to see Maddux still in there after the rain delay.
Well, there's blue sky for a change. Yes, I am. We were talking during the rain delay. You asked me, and we came to the conclusion that it would be more than likely Maddux's call.
Well, he's had 7 days of rest since his last start because of the All-Star break. But Maddux is a guy who rarely will throw more than 90 pitches these days. Steve Trachsel also will stay on. He's got the lead. 2-1 to Wright, who drove in a run with a base hit in the 4th. Mets were down 2-1 in this game. They put together a 4-run 4th inning, capped off by a double play not turned that tacked on a couple of runs. And a bouncing ball to Ramirez at third. Wright retired, one away. Rain delay 44 minutes. And you couldn't have a nicer afternoon now.
And it's no longer humid. My shirt is dry. You're still dry.
Like a cucumber.
Yes, you are. You very impressive.
Hey, I'll complain about cold weather. I'll never complain about hot. Here's Cliff Floyd, who's had himself quite an afternoon already. And he drives another one deep left center, but over goes Pierre and runs it down. And Floyd retired for the first time today.
Well, I must say, and the third time I've said it, each at bat that Floyd has had, he's had 3 quality at bats, 2 for 3 on the day, a double, an RBI, a run scored. He is swinging the bat good.
And as Xavier Nady comes up, let's check in with Chris Cotter.
You know what, during the rain delay, I had a little bit of time to do what most people here at Wrigley do. Go out in the concession area and grab yourself a Chicago dog, which unlike Milwaukee, Milwaukee you can get the sausages, Polish sausages, Italian sausages. I know far too much about that. But here it's all about the classic Chicago dog. You can get it with pickles, relish, onions, chili, cheese, tomatoes even if you want. It's an unbelievable dog. And also, of course, at Wrigley, an old style. And unfortunately, this is just a mere prop for me. Trachsel, let's go. Let's get this game over with. It's still cold.
A prop for you, Chris, but not for the other 41,000 people here.
It's like Tantalus with this.
The camera's off, Chris. You can have a sip.
Cedeno plays the chopper, throws out Nady, and so Maddux returns from the rain delay with a sparkling 1-2-3 inning. Through just 8 pitches to get through the inning, we go to the bottom of the 6th, 5-2 New York. Get your new Mets 6-pack. The Summer Pack and Mets Cyclones Pack offer a great mix of opponents and promotions at special prices. Get your tickets at Mets.com today. Well, coming back from the rain delay, the Mets are absent Carlos Beltran. Not quite sure why, but Andy Chavez has taken over in center field, and we'll try and find out as soon as we can what has befallen Beltran.
Well, I just put a phone call into Jay Horowitz. He has no idea what's wrong, but he's going to go check on it.
We'll find out before anybody else. Rick Peterson on the phone to the bullpen, which will stay busy even as Steve Trachsel continues to work. As we go to the bottom of the 6th inning, Traxel's thrown just 64 pitches through the first 5. Tom Nieto, the bullpen catcher out there, and keeping tabs on things. And maybe the Trachsel said he wasn't sure whether he'd be able to come back from this rain delay, because there you see Bradford and Feliciano both staying ready.
Well, this is probably just a little safety valve here. You got both lefty and righty up. As you've got the lefty would probably be down the road for Jock Jones if there's any trouble, who's the 4th hitter due up in this inning.
Trachsel getting a little extra time to warm up here, coming back from the rain delay. And well, Steve trying for his 7th win in his last 7 starts. That's got him the lead in the 4th inning, and he's allowed just 1 base runner since then. Skies are cleared. Time for the cotton candy.
It is beautiful right now.
You old styles for the non-cotton candy set.
Look at this ballpark. That is such a great shot. When it's full, it's like a racetrack almost.
Well, you've gone from black skies above those lights an hour ago to crystal blue skies, as Todd Walker leads off and takes a strike from Trachsel. Walker's flied out and grounded out today. Walker filled in quite a bit at first base when Derek Lee was hurt. Not a gifted defensive player, but a professional hitter. 1-1. Weekly hit to second. And Valentin throws out Walker, 1 away. In 2006, Hyundai, the Mets, and Sportsnet New York are teaming up to strike out cancer. For every K the Mets pitching staff registers, Hyundai, the Mets, and Sportsnet New York will donate $25 to the Hope and Heroes Children's Cancer Fund. If you want to help, please go to www.hopeandheroes.org. Well, Trachsel's now retired the leadoff hitter in every inning. That's a pretty good recipe for success.
14 out of the last 15.
Derek Lee doubled to right center back in the 1st when the Cubs scored both of their runs. Trachsel's allowed just 1 hit since.
I wouldn't want to lead the game. 14 out of 15. 3-run lead in the 6th. I wouldn't want to entrust it to anybody. I'm in a groove.
I would think, Keith, given his pitch count, that he had to have some concern about stiffening up. And that's why they got the bullpen up here.
What is his pitch count? You always keep track. You have
that was just his 69th pitch.
So he's got this could be a in depth here. All depends on what the rain delay has done to him, as you said.
And like Maddux, he's working on the 8th day coming back from the All-Star break. Lee fouls it off. Last year, Derek Lee, coming over from the Marlins, had a breakout season. Ballpark in Florida was not conducive to Lee, who's a gap-to-gap hitter, but here at Wrigley, perfect.
I always saw those home run hitters. You see that 107 RBI, 46 home runs. If they're all solo home runs.
Did he go? Yep, he went. C.B. Buckner with a call, and Lee not happy in the slightest.
This is not to diminish his Derek Lee's season. I don't think he went. But if you hit all those 46 home runs were solos, and you can see the reaction there. You can't believe it.
That's a great double take right there.
I'm on your side, pal.
Oh, you never swung at those check swings, right?
No, I never did. Most of the time. And they didn't call them as much back then.
They didn't call them strikes as much.
Right. I always thought it was fair. Today, they just for some reason it's almost automatic. They're going to ring you up. And you can see him there, big, tall, long-legged, not real wide spread like a lot of hitters today. Open stance. But the key is that he drives right in with his front shoulder. He stays in. And you'll see he's open with his stance, front foot to the right of the screen. But look where he strides, and look where his right attacks right up the middle.
Payoff to Lee. Fouls off the fastball.
So getting back to my point briefly, 46 RBIs, 46 home runs for Derek Lee, 107 RBIs for the season. You subtract the 46. They're all solo home runs. That's 61 RBI to get 107. Boy, I wish I could hit 30 home runs in my career. I would have had 130 every year. But I didn't.
And Lee takes it wide, ball 4. Well, his ratio of home runs to RBIs may not have been the best ever, but how about Adam Dunn with the Reds? A guy who will have 25 homers and 47 RBIs. I mean, there are some guys who don't drive in runs at all when they're not hitting home runs.
They're what they call them. Well, there's a much more crass way of saying it, but from penthouse to outhouse, so those kind of hitters.
That's the less crass way.
No,
of saying
that's I'm being very nice.
I can only imagine. Well, here's Ramirez, who lined out to center his last time up. Walked and scored back in the first.
And it kind of talk about 100 RBI seasons. Tommy Herr comes to mind with St. Louis, my former teammate. The year after I was traded to the Mets, he became the 3rd hitter for the Cardinals in '84, and he had a career year, hit over 300,
110 runs.
110 runs with under 10 home runs. Now that's
impossible.
But you got Vince Coleman and Ozzie Smith, Lonnie Smith in front of you. They're on base for you, that big ballpark, and that's not diminishing his.
Hit to right center and hit well. Chavez and Nady back, and Chavez reels it in. Back to first goes Derek Lee, 2 out. And this ballpark is playing deep, large today.
It's not carrying today. There's been some balls hit. As you can see the flag, it's just kind of lazily blowing the right field foul pole towards the left. Not much.
Now, generally, you have either the wind blowing out, which makes it a hitter's park, or the wind blowing in, which makes it a pitcher's park, but neutral on a day like today. And this is a neutral day. What do you consider this?
Well, the air is heavy, so the ball doesn't travel as much because you've got humidity, and that's a factor. When there's humidity, a lot of humidity in the air, it does have an effect on the distance the ball goes. Don't ask me why, but that's the case. But normally the wind here at Wrigley in the summer blows from foul pole to foul pole. Earlier in the year, it'll blow in hard. It's very seldom I played here where the wind blew directly out to center field.
And when you get those days,
that's when it's like 15-13 ball game.
Hitter's paradise. Jock Jones lifts one to left center, and Chavez over. And so Steve Trachsel, with 6 solid innings, has himself a 3-run lead. He's allowed just 1 hit since the first.
Steve Berthiaume with your Chevrolet Baseball Day in New York update. The Dodgers and Cardinals opened a 4-game set last night. Bottom 14, Albert Pujols off Odalis Perez. Pujols' 30th. That leads the National League. It's Derek Lowe versus Chris Carpenter tonight. Back to Gary and Keith at Wrigley Field.
On to the 7th inning, the Mets looking to pick up a win coming out of the All-Star break. Greg Maddux continues on for the Cubs, and Chris Woodward fouls off his first one. Well, it was the 6th inning. It's not anymore, but if it were, we'd tell you it's time for the Barbados vacation getaway. If a man hit a home run, one grand prize winner would have won an all-expense-paid trip to the Almond Beach Village Resort in Barbados. And Woodward drives one to deep left toward the wall, and it's out of here. No, it hit the top, and it's in play. Woodward thought he had a home run, and so did I. And Woodward stands at third base with a triple. And he's staring out there. That ball hit right at the corner of the well, and Willie Randolph's going to come out to argue that it was a home run. And boy, from here it sure looked like one.
Well, that's as close as it gets. It's right in that little angle where the well starts back. And the second base umpire's passing the buck over to the third base umpire. It was Wally Bell. Now Wally Now he's going to confer with John Hirschback, the crew chief.
We're going to get a full consultation now.
Oh, fastball right down the pipe, and Woodward hustling all the way. Let's take a peek. Well, that didn't make it. Or did it?
It went over that, looked like it went over that yellow line. No?
Could you tell there?
I couldn't. Let's
blind.
check it again. It's got to go above that yellow.
I'm not sure if it hit off the back wall. And
see, they've changed the configuration here. It used to be they had that basket that hung in front, but they've changed the configuration of the basket there since they redid the bleachers, and it's a little more confusing than it used to be. It used to be that that basket hung out a lot further, and you could tell better if it went into it, because it would usually stay in. Now, that basket's at a much steeper angle.
Oh, look at the one Cub fan there saying it's a home run. Let's see.
Yeah, it hit behind.
It hit behind.
Yeah, you can see because you can see the screen in front of the ball.
Yep, and it hit the corner of the.
It hit the green.
And that's why it
that's a
popped
home run.
That's a home run, no question.
And you can tell because if you can freeze it, you see the screen in front of the ball, the screen of the mesh of the netting right there.
Yep.
And that makes it a home run.
I knew you got that call right.
Just the way that it bounced. Usually, if it hits the bottom of the netting, it won't bounce so severely.
No question.
It went behind that mesh right there. The fan was touching the spot where it hit.
And Chris Woodward is denied his third home run of the season. If it's any consolation, it's his first triple.
That's probably a Met fan. Is that a Met fan or a Cub fan out there trying to show the umpires where it hit? It's a Cub fan.
Cub fan. I'm going to throw him to the wolves.
You know, Willie knows they got it wrong. He knew. I mean, you could tell from the severity with which that ball bounced. Right on that, right there. That's exactly where it was. Now, Eli Marrero is going to bat for Steve Trachsel. The Cubs will bring the infield in. Woodward gets credit for a triple. And Marrero takes high. Chris Cotter, what do you got?
You know, by the letter of the law, in terms of the way the rule reads, I'll read it exactly, the ground rule. It says a baseball hits the top or face of the screen in front of the bleachers and bounces back on the playing field, the ball is in play. So I'm thinking the umpires thought even if it hits the top part of the screen and comes back in play, it is still in play.
No question, but if it hits the top part of that screen, it would not have bounced as severely as it did. And that's how you could tell that it hit that solid stand. There it is, right there off that edge.
It hit
over the netting and off the stands.
Yep, there's no question. It's a home run.
Woodward lost out on his third home run of the year. Instead has his first triple.
Do you realize that if men were on base, how hot you'd be if you were a hitter? If it was like a 3-run home run or a grand slam.
I don't know how hot Woody gets. I mean, he's such a placid, nice person. Could you see him snapping?
I would.
Yes, you would. 1-1 to Marrero. Eli batting at .224, looking to pick up Woodward from third base and give the Mets back the run that they deserve. Mets now have 7 hits off Maddux. And there's a strike, 1 and 2. So Trachsel is done after 6 solid innings, allowed just 2 runs and 3 hits, and in line to pick up his 7th win in his last 7 starts. Trachsel has been so consistent.
Good eye right there. You can see it's so interesting to watch Maddux work. He needs a strikeout. And he's ahead in the count 1 and 2, and he's throwing up nibbling pitches that start out at strikes and then dive out of the strike zone trying to get that strikeout.
Has 6 today. Almost out of 7th. Now it's 3 and 2 to Marrero.
Oh boy, and Maddux wanted that call. Did you see his reaction there? Let's see. Look at his reaction too. Look at his head.
You know what? In the pre-Questek days, that was a strike, but it's not anymore.
He wanted that call.
And Marrero drives one to left center. That'll get the run home. Pierre has it, and Woodward can trot on home Sacrifice fly from Marrero, so Woodward gets to cross the plate eventually, and now it's 6-2. Good job by Marrero to get the run in.
That is the 6th run. Obviously, Maddux has given up. 5 of them are earned.
Here's Valentin, who scored the first one after doubling to lead off the game. That's got a run on the top of the first off Maddux. Cubs immediately got 2 against Trachsel in the bottom of the first, and then the Mets put up a 4 spot against Maddux in the 4th. That's toward the middle, and Walker can't run it down, and Valentin has his 2nd hit of the day. Hit number 8 for New York. So 1 out and 1 on. And here's the Toyota National League schedule for today. Everything else will be played tonight. Washington and Pittsburgh, Colorado at Cincinnati. The revamped Reds almost blew a 6-run lead and beat the Rockies last night. Houston at Florida. The Marlins have lost 3 straight, as Roger Clemens goes for his 2nd win. And out west, the Padres, who've won 5 in a row to take over the lead in the West, will throw Chris Young against the Braves. Right here, 6-2 New York as the Mets bat in the top of the 7th. We had a 44-minute rain delay after the 5th. Though Duca 1 out of 3 today. And a pitch out. Valentin back to the bag. Barrett throwing behind the runner. And there, of course, is the old hand-operated scoreboard. Night game. It's easy here when they have day games. Not much to operate. Jock Jones along the line battling the sun, and he can't get it. Jones, from the time he started tracking that ball, threw out his arms and was having trouble with the sun. And Duca gets a life.
Well, he had his glove up to block the sun, and he brought it down. He brings it down and loses it.
Jock Jones learning on the job in his first year as a Cub. A lot easier in the Metrodome. Well, at least you don't have to battle the sun. Just have to battle the white roof there. There goes Valentin. Throw by Barrett, not in time, and Valentin has his 3rd stolen base. And Valentin batting in that leadoff spot and making like Reyes.
Well, he's been terrific for the Mets, and that's just a veteran move. That's just getting a good jump, taking a chance that Maddux is going to fall asleep at the switch. Still runs well.
And it's always been a hole in Maddux's game. He's never been good at holding runners on. So now runner in scoring position for Duca. And Barrett wants a conversation with Maddux. .93 pitches now for Maddux, and he'll rarely go beyond 100. Even in his heyday, Maddux was never a guy who would run deep pitch counts. Of course, he went through a complete game with 68 pitches. There goes Valentin stealing 3rd, and Barrett's throw not in time. Valentin got a huge jump, steals 2nd, steals 3rd.
Well, another fine jump, and that's just no one around paying any attention to him. And when you've got a 6-2 lead, that is not a bad idea.
So now the infield comes in. 2-2 count to Duca.
So it's kind of interesting to see them, instead of Maddux dictating on the mound, the Mets are dictating to him.
To short, and the runner will hold. Cedeno throws out Duca 2 away. Now it's interesting you say that, Keith, because no pitcher has ever beaten the Mets more often than Maddux has. He has 34 career wins, and even now at this point in his career where he's not as consistent as he used to be, coming into today, the last 9 times that the Mets had faced Maddux, they had been held to 3 runs or less in every one of those 9 games.
Which is pretty incredible. And that's just the caliber of pitcher that he has been.
Well, here's Chavez up for the first time, and the medical word on Carlos Beltran is that he has a sore right knee. Jay Horwitz came in to say he didn't hurt it on any particular play, but it was bothering him, and so he came out after the rain delay. Chavez sitting at 283. And Barrett stops that breaking ball in the dirt, 1-1. Mets have a run home here in the 7th and lead 6-2. Tomorrow, Tom Glavine will make his first start out of the All-Star break, opposed by Carlos Zambrano. El Duque will pitch on Sunday, and Mike Pelfrey will get his second start Tuesday in Cincinnati. Walker throws out Chavez, side retired. But the Mets tack on a run despite having an apparent home run taken away from Chris Woodward. He settles for a triple, and the Mets settle for 1 at 6-2. We go to the bottom of the 7th inning here at Wrigley Field. Mets with a 6-2 lead. We were talking about the Mets rotation right before the break, and right now Pedro Martinez's status is a little bit up in the air. Pedro is still officially on the disabled list. Came down with some kind of stomach ailment during the All-Star break and has not been able to do any throwing off the mound since he went on the DL following his start in Boston. Talking to Pedro this morning, he was still pretty weak, although he said he was feeling a lot better today than he had been. So the Mets are not quite sure where Pedro slots in, but probably not on this road trip.
Well, he said it was something that he ate and he got violently ill, so we all know what can happen if you eat something that's not good. And there's Aaron Heilman. He's on his 40th appearance of the season. You see that ERA, which has skyrocketed over the last, month?
I'm hoping that the All-Star break can restart his season, because you go back to late May when he had that great outing against the Yankees, 9 up, 9 down, and really from that point on his season went downhill. His earned run average since then is hovering around 7. 0-2 to Barrett, and he misses with the fastball. But Heilman is a big part of the puzzle for the Mets as they continue to work their way with this big lead here in the second half of the season.
Well, he was obviously one of the reasons.
And he strikes out Barrett with a changeup, 1 away.
He gave the, if you look at the pitch here, it's a changeup that gets Barrett way out in front, not a strike. That sinking changeup. But Heilman, with Heilman and Sanchez, it gave Willie Randolph and the Mets, dual bridges to Wagner. And both could be rested and used on alternate days.
Well, you and Ron have both made the point that, Heilman's great weapon, that changeup, is something that maybe last year and early this season hitters were not necessarily looking for, but that they've looked for it more and more. And you wonder whether he has more of an advantage against an out of division rival that doesn't see him all the time as compared to the Floridas and the Philadelphias who might face him 7 or 8 times over the course of a year.
Well, it still remains to be seen. He still has got a very, very good changeup, throws hard enough. He just hasn't been spotting his fastball inside.
Back to the mound. And Heilman throws out Pagan 2 away.
And that's a key to a changeup pitcher. I mean, Andy Messersmith, I brought it up in the past, had the greatest changeup of his generation, 70s, and he was strictly a fastball changeup pitcher, and he had great success. Heilman throws hard enough. He's got a great changeup, as we well know. He's just lost the ability to get that fastball inside for a strike, and he hasn't been able to put the hitters away.
Here's Ronnie Cedeno, the number 8 hitter, and he takes it wide.
What I mean by not being able to put the hitters away, Gare, is that He gets 2 strikes on the hitter, gets ahead, and can't do it. Can't put him away. Literally, that's what it means.
And why do you think that is?
It's just he hasn't made his pitches. He's been a little off. He's been a little wild. I mean, by wild, I mean wild around the plate.
1-1 to Cedeno. But it's almost seemed at times that hitters have, you know, when his changeup is down and diving out of the strike zone, they've learned to lay off that pitch.
Well, he's a sinker ball pitcher, so everything sinks. Now, maybe he'd be wise to learn a four-seamer, a four-seam fastball, straight fastball, maybe go up on the strike zone, up and down the ladder. But it's tough when you throw 3/4 like he does to get on top and throw a straight fastball.
Well, the other thing is he's got a breaking ball that he doesn't use now that he's a relief pitcher.
Yes, he does. And I think it's something maybe he should use more, particularly against right-handers.
Ahead on Cedeno, 1-2. Right with the backhand play. And Cedeno out by a stride, side retired. So a very strong inning for Aaron Heilman. He sets the Cubs down 1-2-3. David Wright's been sparkling in the field today, and the Mets up by 4 as we go to the 8th.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Sterling Mats and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Sterling Mats.
First ball game, first soda at the ball game. Are you having a good time?
Wearing a Met hat in enemy territory. That's a very brave young man.
He'll stick it out for the old orange and blue. Will Oman, the new pitcher for the Cubs, throws strike 1 to Carlos Delgado. Cubs have gotten a lot of good work out of their bullpen this year. Their closer Ryan Dempster's been a little shaky, but the guys leading up to him have all pitched well.
Well, you can see right now Ullman's a little country hardballer here. Born in Frankfurt, West Germany. Wow. It's an Army brat, huh?
Yep. Well, and the Air Force brats start the game for the Cubs. Greg Maddux. And Delgado down on 3 pitches. Good heat by Ullman to get him one away.
And that was quick work right there. Delgado not staying in here. Watch him fly out. And have to reach. He is still in a funk. 3 strikeouts today for Delgado.
Juaner Sanchez on call in the Mets bullpen after Heilman pitched a stellar 7th inning. So it looks like the Mets will get everybody a little work today at the back end of that bullpen. Here's David Wright. And he takes a strike.
And you're looking at the 4 days off. Everybody a little rusty. Got the necessary innings out of Trachsel. Gave him the extra inning after the rain delay. This is a hard thrower right here.
Will Oman in his 2nd full year with the Cubs, 28 years old. Two and 1 to Wright.
Hey, Greg.
Ullman taking over for Greg Maddux, who threw 98 pitches. That's a lot for him over 7 innings. Allowed 6 runs, 5 of them earned on 8 hits. Walked 2, struck out 6. And fastball by Wright, 2-2.
Well, we know one thing about this guy is he's going to throw his heater. He hasn't thrown a breaking ball yet. He just blew Delgado off the map and now is just plowed ahead of David Wright here.
Extra time off. A little extra on the fastball. And he blows away Wright. Back-to-back strikeouts for Will Oman. And very impressively done. 2 out and nobody on. As we check out the Hyundai in-game box score, Jose Valentin catalyst at the top. A couple of stolen bases along the way. Chris Woodward at the bottom. That 3B should be an HR. umpiring mistake, and we're told it's the third time this year that a visiting player on a similar ball has had a home run taken away from them inappropriately here at Wrigley Field.
Ouch.
And Floyd gets drilled again. Well, you would have hoped that the All-Star break would put an end to Cliff's daily drillings, but he gets hit for the 11th time this season.
Well, all in a day's work. You don't have to like it, but maybe find a way to get out of the way a little better. And that got him. I'm not laughing. It hurts. This is not a good spot. Right off the tricep.
So Cliff shakes it off and heads down to first base. And meanwhile, Dusty Baker has come out. He's going to make a double switch and bring a right-hander into the game. And getting into a little conversation with Mark Carlson along the way.
Well, you've got Nady up, who hits lefties well. I know he wants to flip-flop the lineup. He's had 4 days off his squad. He's blown away. Ullman's blown away Delgado and David Wright. That's just too much managing for me.
Neifi Perez will come in to play shortstop, so they'll double switch the lineup. They'll bring the right-hander into the game. Here at Wrigley, Dusty Baker makes a double switch. He brings Neifi Perez in to play shortstop. He'll bat ninth. And on to pitch for the Cubs, the veteran right-hander Scott Williamson, veteran of two Tommy John surgeries.
Well, his heyday was with the Reds.
Rookie of the year in Cincinnati. Cliff Floyd runs. Barrett's throw on the money, but it pops out of the glove of Walker, and Floyd is safe at second base. Looked like he was going to be out, but Walker couldn't hold it.
Well, I think the throw did beat him.
And Floyd getting his revenge after being drilled.
Well, there's the throw. Good pitch to throw for the catcher. Right on the money. Cliff is, oh, Olay. Didn't want to get hit. Look at this. And almost he didn't make the tag. Cliff would have been safe if he held onto the ball.
Looked like hit him high on the leg as that foot was getting into the bag. 1-0 to Nady. And he takes a strike. You know, ever since the Mets took the lead in this game in the fourth inning, the Cubs have shown every evidence of why they're 20 games under 500.
It's easy to tell, isn't it? Teams that are struggling, it's just like they've had all the starch taken out of them.
Nady 0 for 2 in a walk. And he takes the slider from Williamson, and he'll throw that slider a lot. 2-1.
Well, it's a long year when you're 20 under 500. There's Sarge, Gary Matthews.
20 games under 500, and that having won their last 3 games before the All-Star break. Give you an idea how bad it's been. In fact, if you go back to when Derek Lee was hurt back in April, they were 9-5 then. As Nady banks one off Williamson, he hobbles after it and throws him out, and Williamson in some pain as he limps off toward the dugout. Since Lee got hurt, the Cubs have the worst record in the major leagues. And to add injury to insult, Williamson gets drilled. Now, this is something new on Mets.com. You can now download the MLB.TV Mosaic, and with it you can watch up to 6 games simultaneously on one screen, including out-of-market Mets games. It's the highest quality video of live baseball you can watch on the internet. Check it out at Mets.com. Home 8th inning, Duaner Sanchez takes over the pitching. Neifi Perez, first man to face him, takes a strike.
Duaner has been wonderful.
Had that little lull after he was very heavily used early on, but he has bounced back in terrific fashion over the last month.
And I'm a bit surprised he bounced back so quickly from that pinched nerve in his neck, Gary. Oh, good
Comes
slider.
Inside, 1 and 2.
I guess kudos to Ray Ramirez, the training staff. Good slider down and in, tough to lay off. That's Mike Herbst and Ray Ramirez, the trainers.
When he walked off the mound in Toronto, you had no idea. And he gets Perez looking one away.
I would have thought his season was over. That he did something severely to his arm. Go after the hard slider in. He gets the fastball. Oh boy, tried to get it in. It came right out over the middle, but had him set up, caught him looking.
So 1 out and nobody on. Mets with a 6-2 lead as the Cubs bat in the 8th. And here's Juan Pierre, who's 0 for 3 and Hart 0 for 3. It takes ball 1. Juan Pierre, year after year, has played every inning of every game. And he did that for years in the South Florida Heat.
Before then, he broke in with Colorado.
I don't think the Rockies really knew what they had, but in Florida, forming that 1-2 combination with Luis Castillo, they were a formidable tandem of pests. Woodward to his left. Quick throw. 2 away. Nicely done by Woodward against the speed of Pierre.
Well, it's a good angle right here. Watch Woodward here get the break on the ball. Knows he has not time to any wasted motion. Just threw on the run almost. Didn't throw enough, a lot on it. He knew he didn't have to once he didn't have any of the extra footwork.
So Heilman and Sanchez have combined to retire the first 5 to face them. Here's Todd Walker, and he takes the changeup. 1-0. Ties him up, and he held the swing. 2-0.
And we got Chris here, Woodward on the plate. Watch him. He doesn't plant. He just kind of just throws real quickly. No wasted motion as he's moving to his left laterally. Nice footwork. Footwork is so important.
2-1 to Walker. And Woodward filling in again for Jose Reyes, and he's played more and more over the last couple of weeks. And as he has, he's contributed more and more. Line the other way, and that's a fair ball going down the line. Floyd plays to Karam, and he'll hold Walker to a single. Very nicely done off the sidewall by Cliff Floyd. Cliff has played here enough to know the Karams here at Wrigley Field, where that wall is so tight to the line.
Well, the scouting reports too, that ball is right down the line, and Cliff was playing straight up. And this is nice hitting. I always love to see this. Hit it right where it's pitched. You see Cliff right there. He's straight up. Nice play by Cliff to hold him to a single. Absolutely.
Here's Derek Lee with a runner at first and 2 out. Lee's been on base twice with a double and a walk, and he takes the slider. 1-1.
Well, here we are in the 8th inning right now, and you've got the home run threat in Lee with a 4-run lead. You want to keep Lee in the ballpark here.
You see there 2 home runs against Lee, but Lee has not been hitting home runs since coming back from the broken wrist. Still has that right wrist very heavily taped. He's hit 1 home run in 2.5 weeks since coming back. Have to think coming back from a broken wrist, that would be the one thing that would come last, would be that power.
You just don't know the extent of how it's going to affect you, even though you're healed. You definitely have lost strength in there, that's for sure.
Behind 3-1, Sanchez throws a strike. 3-2.
It doesn't really matter which hand it would be or which wrist. They're both equally important. The most important hand in hitting is that bottom hand.
And Sanchez walks Lee, and now the Cubs have 2 men on. Well, the only way the Cubs are going to get back in this game is with base runners. And that walk, not what Sanchez wanted. Now 2 on and 2 out for Aramis Ramirez.
Your hands and wrists are so important. You see him putting that protector on his wrist. And that is his top hand, which is more of a guide. It's kind of like the hammer. The most important hand in hitting is the bottom hand. So for a left-hand hitter, obviously it's the right hand. For a right-hand hitter, it's his left hand. Because that's the one that's got to come through and do the biggest flip of the wrist. The wrist flips over more on the bottom hand.
Ramirez takes a strike.
The other hand, the top hand's more of a guide. The driving force in a swing is that bottom hand.
So you're saying that the fact that he hasn't hit for power isn't necessarily related to the wrist?
I don't know. I just don't think that I can answer that question, because you don't know the extent of. You know, he's rehabbed extensively and done a lot of lifting to get that strength back in that wrist, because that wrist had atrophied. This has been in the cast. But is it as strong? Is it up to speed?
Popped up. That'll come back into the crowd. 1 and 2. Well, there's no question that for the Cubs to function effectively, they have to have Derek Lee at full strength.
Yes, they haven't got that great a lineup, and he's obviously a batting champion.
Well, they're last in the National League in runs scored. And about says it all.
A batting champion with 46 home runs last year. My goodness.
Challenge for the Triple Crown for a while. And Sanchez strikes out Ramirez to end the inning. Second strikeout for Duaner Sanchez. He gets Ramirez, and we go to the 9th. 6-2 New York.
Steve Berthiaume with your Chevrolet Baseball Night in New York update. The Rangers and Orioles last night. Mark Teixeira only 9 home runs in the season's first half, hit 3 last night. Texas all over the Birds, 15-1. Kevin Millwood and Chris Benson tonight. Rangers tied with Oakland for the AL West lead. Back to Wrigley.
9th inning in Chicago. Steve Trachsel in line for his 7th straight win. Tom Glavine has a 9-game winning streak intact right now. It's 2 pretty good winning streaks to have going at the same time. Chris Woodward has contributed to the cause. Hit a home run that wasn't his last time up. Got credit for a triple and scored a run. Roberto Novoa, the new Chicago pitcher. Scott Williamson faced one batter, got hit on the leg by a grounder, and went straight down the steps to the clubhouse.
Well, it's been a struggle for Novoa this year. You see the ERA. Too many walks. 20 walks in 42 innings. That's too many. Too many base runners.
Novoa's second year with the Cubs after coming over from the Tigers in a deal that sent Kyle Farnsworth the other way. Jose Reyes not playing, but still dancing.
Just take care of that finger.
2-0 to Woodward.
Pedro there. It's a vaudeville act.
Well, it's nice to see Pedro feeling a little better. That's a big plus. Now it's 3-0 to Woodward. Well, with Pedro not available to rejoin the rotation, Mike Pelfrey will get another start on Tuesday. Chance to see what he can do without those first time out nerves going. And there's a 4-pitch walk to Woodward leading off in the 9th. So Woodward walks this time. Last time up, didn't quite count as a home run, but it still was our Coors Light cold blast.
Well, you called it the home run that wasn't. And this cleared the wall and caromed back in. You see right there.
Love that young Cubs fan making it clear that that was a Coors Light cold blast, even if it doesn't show up in the box score that way.
Honesty is the best policy.
Julio Franco will bat for Duaner Sanchez, and that's a double play grounder to short. Perez to Walker, and a high throw, but Lee bails out Walker, who got upended by Woodward at second base. 6-4-3 on the double play, and well, the Mets messed up a Cubs double play earlier with a good takeout slide. They almost did it again.
Well, we're seeing what we saw a long time when you had Matsui over at second base for the Mets, and an inability to turn a double play, and it kills you so many times. And if you're Met fans, you're kind of, I'm sure you're happy there seeing another team do it.
Todd Walker, looks like he's wearing blue blockers, Keith. Jose Valentin takes a strike.
Literally.
Blue blockers. My favorite Keith Hernandez TV performance. 0-2 to Valentin.
I forget the commercial. Was I good?
Here's the AOL game summary. You were spectacular. Cliff Floyd with a good day at the plate. Same for Valentin, has also turned in a couple of steals. And there's Trachsel in line for his 7th consecutive win. Billy Wagner, even though it'll be a non-save situation, getting ready to pitch the 9th inning and get the rust off from the All-Star break. And that's a rifle shot to right, and Valentin has his 3rd hit of the game. So Valentin, who had that 7 RBI day the day before, the Saturday before the All-Star break, keeps on swinging. Mets Weekly gives you the inside look at the New York Mets. It's the only place that'll take you on the field, on the road, and behind the scenes. Mets Weekly Saturdays at 12:30 only on Sportsnet New York.
Well, a nice 3-for-5 day for Jose Valentin. He just continues to play so well.
That's now of 9 hits, and Duca takes ball 1. Well, you know, if you had to rank the surprises in the first half of the season, I think Valentin is right at the top of that list.
And Chavez. There's your bench. Although
it was your bench.
It was your bench.
But I mean, Chavez has done a nice job, no question about it, in a part-time role. But for Valentin to become an everyday player, that in and of itself was a shock. But to do as well as he has, I don't think anybody could have figured.
And to play such a good second base, which he has, and he's told you that that's the least comfortable infield position for him. He's been spectacular.
Toward the hole and through into right field, and Duca has his 2nd hit, and Valentin filling his oats today. He'll go 1st to 3rd. So Duca continues to crank out the base hits, looking more comfortable than he did as a batting practice pitcher.
Well, that's what he does so well. Look at that fastball boring in on him, inner half, and inside outing and staying level. And Valentin, of course, knowing that he's got it to go to 3rd base, automatic.
Larry Rothschild, the Cubs pitching coach, coming out. There's nobody in the bullpen, so he's just trying to settle down Novoa. Well, Valentin had the 4 days off from the All-Star break and looking younger than his 36 years by the day. A couple of stolen bases today, taking the extra base there on the base hit. Maybe a little winded now.
Oh, you don't mind when you got 3 hits. Trust me. You welcome it. It's like go to the whip.
Now Andy Chavez up for the 2nd time. Carlos Beltran left the game after the rain delay right before the 6th inning with a sore right knee. Chavez grounded out his only at bat. 1st and 3rd, 2 out. And Novoa misses low. Chavez got far more playing time than anybody would have expected, because all 3 outfielders have missed chunks of time. 1-1 to Andy. Well, it's nice to have somebody who has a day off to keep everybody else cool.
He says, let me rub those 3 strikeouts out of your hair.
Over the mound, and Walker will make the play to 2nd for the force. That ends the inning. So 2 hits and 2 left. We go to the bottom of the 9th at Wrigley. Mets with a 4-run lead. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance. Visit geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. By Jeep, the all-new 7-passenger Jeep Commander. It's your world. Take command. Sound City, Midtown's Manhattan source for your audio, video, and electronics needs. And by the New York State Smokers Quit line, call 1-866-NY-QUITS for free help and advice. Start your smoke-free life today.
You worked your way through that. You showed me something.
Like knee-deep in mud. Billy Wagner takes over in the last of the 9th. 4th Met pitcher of the afternoon. Non-save situation, and Jacques Jones hits the first pitch. 1 out. And watching this Cubs team today, I think that about says it all.
Well, they don't have much life. Like I said, early in my career, fortunately for myself, got all those, look at Dusty Baker, got all those bad seasons out early in my career. And I remember, there's, Glendon right there. But got those out early in my career, and I remember being on the bench in July and August and September. But on the way to losing 90 plus.
But this is a ballpark where 41,000 fans are going to come out for every game, and you would think that would give you a little life. 1-1 to Barrett.
It's a long. You got a point. It's better to play in front of a lot of people.
I mean, it's not like playing in Florida in front of 5,000.
Or San Francisco at Candlestick in the old days, or Montreal in the old days.
Now, granted, a lot of folks come out to the ballpark here just for the ambiance, but they're rooting for the Cubs, most of them. Michael Barrett waves at the pitch away, 2-2. And of course, it's been a little while since the Cubs won it all, only 98 years. Two long droughts erased over the last 2 seasons. Well, that's how long it's been. "97 years.
And 60 since the championship.
1945. When the Cubs last won the National League pennant. 2 years since they won a division. That's the number on the left, the 02. To right field. Nady back. Looks up, and it's off the ivy. Barrett heads to second and just makes it with a 1-out double. Barrett might have been guilty of observing and had to hustle to make it to second.
You can do that in this ballpark. And we'll take a look here. He's in his Cadillac. A little bit.
Better run.
He's one of those one-speed runners.
It's not that fast to begin with. And one time Barrett was a third baseman. It was an ill-fated experiment with the Expos. Angel Pagan takes a strike. Pagan, a switch hitter, a natural right-hand guy. He was in the Mets farm system until this past winter. Geico Sports Night, the news and information source for all New York area sports fans. Geico Sports Night covers the stories that New York sports fans care about. 6 p.m., 10 p.m., and 1 a.m. every night, only on Sportsnet New York. And Wagner misses. Changeup? Was that his slider?
No, slider. He just didn't get on top of it.
He's been threatening to throw some changeups, but
I hope not.
Wagner wants to talk to Delgado.
He's got something in his eye. I think we'll see a trainer real quick if it's not fixed.
Got Reyes come out.
Abracadabra.
Reyes was fixing up Delgado in the dugout. Maybe Delgado just passed along the magic to Wagner.
That's a true team effort.
Tinkers to Everett's chance right there. Back to Wagner, freezes the runner, and there are 2 away. Barrett scrambling back to the bag. And now the Cubs down to their final out of the afternoon.
Oh, nice reaction there. That's a base hit up the middle. And he had to bend for that one. That was a scooter. And the Mets are 1 out away from starting the second half off on the right foot.
And Phil Nevin will pinch hit for the Cubs. Nevin, veteran, acquired from Texas a couple of months ago and maybe on the move before long again. Cubs have talked about dealing him before the deadline. And Nevin takes a strike.
Well, I just don't think he fits in here, does he?
Nevin's had a very interesting career. He went from being the first overall draft by the Astros to being a total bust to finally being a star in San Diego. But his star has passed. But he rifles a base hit to center. Barrett will come around and score. An RBI single for Nevin, and now it's 6-3. So Wagner gives up a 2-out run.
Fastball out over the plate. Nevin stays in. Very strong hitter. And I'm sure it's not what Wagner wanted to do in his after 4 days rest, to come in and give up a run.
Neifi Perez up for the second time, struck out in his only at bat. And he hits one to short. Woodward's got it. And with the flip to Valentin, the Mets have their first win coming out of the All-Star break. Their 3rd straight overall. They go to 18 games over 500 as they take the opener of the series from the Cubs. And Steve Trachsel has now won 7 straight starts, the longest such streak by a Met since Bobby Jones won 8 straight back in 1997.
And he improves his record now to 9-4. So he has really stepped up, the number 3 starter for the New York Mets.
At a time when Pedro Martinez is on the shelf and Tom Glavine has not gotten a win in his last 3 starts, Trachsel has pitched extremely well, worked around a couple of runs in the first inning, and he gets himself a win here today as the Mets are able to rally from behind against their old nemesis Greg Maddux. And so the Mets start the second half the way they spent most of the first half, shaking hands. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for our next broadcast on the WB11. Mets and Cubs at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Coming up next is Nissan Postgame Live. Well, after 4 days off for the All-Star break, Mets returned, and they returned in style. Diving and slashing, and with plenty of support in the crowd. Even those who didn't get to play enjoyed coming back from the break as the Mets get themselves a 6-3 win. Now for Keith Hernandez, Chris Connor, and our entire SNY crew, I'm Gary Cohen. Let's go to Steve Berthiaume in our Sportsnet New York studio.
All right, Gary, thank you very much. Sportsnet New York's Mets coverage continues. Nissan Postgame Live starts right after a quick break. Ron Darling is with us here in studio. We will break down the game. Plus, we'll have reaction from the Mets clubhouse at Wrigley Field, including manager Willie Randolph. And then it's Geico Sports Night immediately following right here on SNY. Ron Darling and I back with Nissan Postgame Live right after this. Hey there, welcome to Nissan Postgame Live. Steve Berthiaume, Ron Darling along the way, coming to you from our SNY studios here at Rockefeller Center West. A reminder, Geico Sports Night immediately follows Nissan Postgame Live here on Sportsnet New York. Ron, the Mets are picking up right where they left off in the season's first half. A win over the Cubs. 6-3 is the final score from Wrigley. They have won 3 in a row. Steve Trachsel has won 7 in a row. To me, the story of this game is Trachsel. He's having that kind of year that championship teams need to get from their third starter. starters where he wins 14, 15, 16 games.
It's so true. I mean, who would have thought that Steve Trachsel would, as the third starter, would come out and already have 9 wins. Coming off the back surgery last year, he's done everything that you want out of him. He goes out there, gives you a good yeoman effort of 6 or 7 innings. Bullpen comes in and really closes the door. So the story was Trachsel, and also the Cubs. The Cubs look, they're a good team for the Mets to come out of the break playing.
Yeah, good way to start the second half here when you've got a 12-game division lead. You start off with a few in Wrigley Field, and the Cubs knocked them around for a while, and that's what happened today. But it happened against Greg Maddux for the Mets. They had to come back from an early deficit. Let's pick up the highlight. And Maddux just 2-8 since winning his first 5 decisions and immediately in trouble. First batter, Jose Valentin off the ivy. Ronnie Valentin batting leadoff 3 for 5 today.
3 for 5 with a couple stolen bases also. Pecan played that into a double.
And then Paul Duca. Duca had himself a 2 for 5 day to second. That moves Valentin to third. And here's Carlos Beltran.
Well, you got to love it. You got him over with Duca, and then you have to get him in. Derek Lee was thinking of coming home on Valentin. Chose to get the out at first base. 1-0 Mets.
Bottom first, here's Trachsel looking for his 7th straight win. We take one more look at the replay, and you're right. Lee had a shot here to go home and decided, I thought better of it.
Well, nice job by Valentin. You don't have to be fast to be a good base runner. You have to have good instincts.
Trachsel got his first 2 outs, and then here's Derek Lee back from the injury. Double to right center. This is not the start they were hoping for from Steve Trachsel.
Well, Steve Trachsel, usually if you're going to get to him, you're going to get to him early. Sometimes there's trouble with his control as he walks Ramirez.
And then Jock Jones, left center. And here we go. Right out of the gate, Trachsel appears to be having some issues. That's off the ivy. Lee and Ramirez scores, and the Cubs quickly have come back to retake the lead. It's 2-1. You don't want to see that. You come out, get the 1-0 lead, and then bang, it's gone just like that, home half of the first.
Well, you really want to put a 0 up there. Trachsel's not able to do that.
Bottom third, Trachsel, some defensive hit. Cliff Floyd! That's a Coco Crisp play right there.
Nice play by Floyd. They needed all that 6'5" inches to make that play off Juan Pierre.
He got hit by a pitch again today, late in the game. The guy just can't catch a break. He's on the ground. He's diving around. He's getting hit. Here's Derek Lee to third, and here's the all-star David Wright.
Well, David Wright, he's had some troubles with the easy plays with his throwing ability, but on tough plays, he's made plays like this all season long.
Guess we're not going to have any all-star home run derby let up from David Wright. Certainly in terms of intensity, it was 1 for 4 today. Top 4, 2 on. Maddux gets Carlos Delgado. Delgado had a tough day, 0 for 4 with 3 Ks. And there, Maddux passed Bob Gibson on the all-time strikeout list. Still in the 4th, the Mets open it up. First and second, Wright singles to left. Duca comes around, and we are tied at 2. And then it's Cliff Floyd. Ron is starting, as we've said in the recent weeks, starting to slowly come out of it. 2 for 3 today.
Had a couple of hits. Also had a line drive to center field, hit right in the nose. So he was on every pitch today.
Beltran scores just over the bag, so that's a big hit for the Mets. They have the 3-2 lead. Intentional walk to Xavier Nady, loads the bases for Woodward, and X does a nice job of breaking up this DP.
Well, this is what happens to teams that are 20 under 500. They do not make the plays when they're supposed to. Here, Walker takes a while getting the ball to Cedeno, and Xavier Nady. These are the little things that you do over the course of the season that help you win games.
He wasn't within 10 feet of the second base bag, though.
And Maddux was really upset. He thought he should have been called out.
Yeah, 4-run Met 4th, and then the skies opened up, had a 44-minute Armageddon thunderstorm there, and Trachsel was done after 6, gave up just 2 runs on 3 hits, pitched really well, and once they got going, Chris Woodward has a home run here off Maddux, but they never did give him the home run. And to Woodward's credit, Ron, he's not sure about the home run call here, but he's hustling all the way around the bases.
Well, that's kind of the player that Chris Woodward is. And with Reyes out, Woodward playing this well allows them to keep Reyes on the bench until he's fully healed. You see Willie Randolph, of course. He is the only one who saw it. The 4 umpires missed it.
Yeah, you've got third base ump Wally Bell. Mark Carlson is the plate ump, and you can see it bounces above that little yellow railing there. See, and then it goes up, but Willie knew right away that was a home run, but he never did get the call.
Well, he knows Chris Woodward doesn't get many chances at home runs. So
yeah, Eli Marrero pinch hitting for Trachsel, sac fly, scores Woodward, and that made it 6-2 Mets. So Maddux gave up 6 runs, 5 earned in 7 innings. And there it is. The Mets have won 3 in a row. Steve Trachsel has won 7 in a row. He has not been beaten since May 17th and has allowed more than 4 earned runs only once during that span. And Ron, I think it is interesting the way we saw Trachsel struggle early in that first inning, gave up the hit, the walk. You thought, oh, here we go. But he really settled down.
He really did. And, you know, the way he's been pitching recently, he's had a lot of base runners, some walks, he's had some base hits, but he's been able to make that pitch a lot sharper today, getting ahead of the hitters, and really, after the first inning, overpowered the Chicago Cubs.
Greg Maddux is now 7-10 for the Chicago Cubs, not the numbers you'd expect from a future Hall of Famer, no matter if he is 40 years old or not. Gave up the home run that should have been, but wasn't, to Chris Woodward, and Woody spoke with our Chris Cotter after the game.
Well, Chris, you were talking to me when we came up and you said, hey, we got 3 guys who had 3 hits. Why do you want to talk to me? Well, you had the most screwed up hit of the whole game. Did you think that was over the fence when you hit it?
I thought I had a chance. I knew it was going to be close, and like I told you before, you know, I was just running hard because I know if it kicks off that wall and it goes right to the left fielder, you know, he's got a chance to throw me out second. So I was just running hard no matter what.
And so you just went clear on to third base. You didn't even have a chance to see it go over or maybe not go over?
No, I knew it hit something hard, obviously, you know, some kind of pole or some wall or I don't know. But, you know, I just saw it ricochet over to the left, so I just got to keep running until, you know, they tell me it's a homer.
So it's a leadoff triple. Is there any situation where you might have gotten a little bit more upset than you did when Willie came out and everybody else came out to vehemently argue it?
You know what? You take your hits when you can get them. You know, it's not something you can complain about. But, you know, if they made the right call or the wrong call, you know, it's something you just got to deal with.
4 days off for you and a lot of the guys on this team. How difficult was it to kind of get back into the groove of things?
It's kind of tough, you know, especially when it's 4 days off. You know, yesterday was nice to come out and take some batting practice, take some ground balls. But, you know, it's a long season, and, you know, you get used to, you know, playing. I'm used to not playing for 4 days, so it's a little easier for me than some of the other guys.
Well, you're also making the most of your opportunity right now. Jose with the finger, giving you a chance to play every day. And you were slumping for a while. Now you're starting to hit again. Is playing every day making the most of that?
Oh, no question, no question. Anytime you can get consistent at bats, you know, whether or not you get hits, you kind of get a little bit of a rhythm at the plate, you know, and I think that's the whole key to hitting. You know, last year was a little different. You know, I tended to get hits when I didn't play every day, but, you know, this year it's, you know, for a little while there I was scuffling to get some hits, but it's something you just gotta, you know, keep grinding it out.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, there's Chris Cotter, Chris Woodward, Ronnie. Greg Maddux now 7-10. We mentioned some of the numbers, but they continue to get worse the more you delve into Greg Maddux's season. Hasn't won since June 9th, 7-10 overall, 2-10 since that perfect April. He's got to really be frustrated with his situation and that of the Cubs.
Yeah, he's frustrated, and I think what happens when you're 40 years old, you need everything kind of to go right. He's a contact kind of pitcher, so they're going to have to play good defense. They weren't able to turn that double play today. So as you get older, you want to be on a team that's a team that's contending, because they'll make the plays, they'll score some runs, and that is not that Cub team right now.
Yeah, it could be a long second half here for Maddux and the rest of the Cubs. It's still ahead here on Nissan Postgame Live. Plenty more analysis on this afternoon's game. Ron and I continue to break it down. We'll also send you back out to Wrigley Field and get Keith Hernandez's take, his thoughts, and of course we'll hear from Willie Randolph's daily session with the media. That in its entirety coming up here on Nissan Postgame Live. We are back after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Nissan Postgame Live. Steve Trachsel and Ron Darling along the way from our SNY studios here at Rockefeller Center West. Another Mets win, a 6-3. They beat the Chicago Cubs in the series opener at Wrigley Field. And let's go back out to the north side of Chicago now and welcome into one of the men who called the game for you here on Sportsnet New York, Keith Hernandez. Keith, Steve Trachsel, boy, his previous career best, he won 4 in a row back in August of 2003. Now here we are, 7 straight, retired 13 of 15 after that shaky first inning. Your thoughts on Trachsel today?
Well, I just thought that Steve really didn't throw that many breaking balls, curveballs. His big sweeping curve, he stuck primarily with his fastball and his splitter. This was his best start, I think, in the 7 straight games that he's pitched, 6 innings and 3 hits, 2 earned runs, and also coming back out after that 40-plus minute delay to give the extra innings so that Willie then could go to his 2 bridges, that is Heilman and Sanchez, and then Wagner to each get him an innings work with this extended 4-day All-Star break.
Well, Keith, you know, this is the time of year when teams start to look to sell some of their talent. What did you see in Greg Maddux today that you would think could help a team down the stretch? I didn't see too much today.
Well, Ronnie, early in the game, I know you were watching, he was hitting the corners and getting a lot of good sink on his ball, and then all of a sudden in that 4th inning, the 4-run 4th, he started getting his pitches up and over the middle. And, you know, even when he in his heyday, he never was overpowering. he's not a guy that can get away with making mistakes over the middle and up, and like all sinker ballers. So now that he's throwing, not as hard as he used to, if he gets the ball up and out over the middle, he just doesn't have that margin for error anymore.
Keith, you mentioned that 4-run Met fourth. It seemed when Maddux lost his composure, if a veteran like him can lose his composure in that inning, and it was after Xavier Nady broke up that double play when X was just a little bit more than slightly off the second base bag. Is that a dirty play?
No, it's not a dirty play. The umpire could have called him out. It was a clean slide. He tried to reach back with his hand towards the bag. He might have been maybe 2 or 3 inches away from the bag, and you can call him out, certainly, but the umpire didn't. And it did seem to upset Maddux, and the Mets just kept adding on.
Well, Keith, you talk about Cliff Floyd, and he made a great catch off the bat of Juan Pierre today. That makes you feel like his ankle's feeling great. But what do you see in him? He hit the ball hard 3 times today, a couple of base hits. He seems to be out of that slump that he had in the first half of the season.
Well, Ron, we talked about it before the All-Star break that Cliff was starting to swing the bat better, and he had that horrific start, as you know, the first 2 months of the season. And he's been hurt a couple times as he was starting to get it back before the All-Star break. So we, as an alert, said, let's watch Cliff Floyd. He may be up for a great second half. And he swung the bat great today. I think he's waiting, Ron. When we all slump, we get out in front, and Cliff was out in front now. I don't mind it when I see Cliff Floyd break a bat and get jammed on a pitch inside. That means he's waiting. Before, he'd have been out in front lunging, and then you have no chance. So also the fact that he hit a line drive to center field today means that he's hitting the ball where it's pitched, and he could be a big factor in this lineup in the second half. Even though it's a big lead, it could just really explode for the Mets.
Keith, doesn't look like we're going to have any let up here from Carlos Beltran. Had that great night at the All-Star game Tuesday, 1 for 3 today. How's he look to you?
He looks fine to me. I mean, I think Carlos Beltran is totally relaxed up at the plate. It's a whole new year for him. He's in the flow of the season. I look forward to him just continuing what he's doing. He likes to play under the radar screen, and that is certainly what he's doing with awesome numbers. I mean, he's got 60-plus RBI. He's just doing everything, scoring runs, hitting for power. The one concern offensively right now in this ball club is that the Carlos Delgado is continuing his dry spell. He doesn't look comfortable at the plate to me.
Keith, what's your take on the Cubs? I mean, this is going to be a long second half of the season for them. How do they motivate themselves to play in a big series against a division leader like the Mets? What does this mean for them at this point?
Well, not to play like they did today. You can see some of the shots we had on the bench. Early in my career, I was telling Gary during the game that I got all those bad years out early in my career. I was very fortunate. I remember playing on teams that are 20 games under 500 and basically playing it out in July, August, September. And it's flat. There's no fun. There's no life on the bench, as the pitchers plainly showed. They looked flat, and it just seems to me that if you come to town and play the Cubs and you get ahead of them, and get ahead by 2, 3, 4 runs, they'll lay down and die right now. That is my feeling on this ball club.
All right, Keith, thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Good to talk to you guys.
All right, Ron, what about that? You got 2 teams, this thing could really avalanche on the Cubs at this point. 2 teams, you couldn't be going in more opposite directions than the Mets and the Cubs. How does the rest of the series shape up in your mind?
Well, I think Keith said it right, and that is if you get ahead of teams like this, they will lay down. They know that the Mets are this powerhouse that are coming in, and once they get ahead and they get some decent pitching, you got to beat the Mets in 6 innings, because with that bullpen, they will shut you down. Keith failed to mention, we should have mentioned also, that Carlos Beltran did leave after the 6th inning today. Andy Chavez came in, said he has a slight knee problem that he might have injured in the All-Star game. Not really injured, but it's just tweaking him a little bit, so he left the game.
This is the part of the season where the little nicks and cuts start to add up. Everybody's got a little something at this point and can use a couple of days off.
Yeah, the way the Mets are playing, he can take them.
All right, we'll be back with more Nissan Postgame Live coming up. A big day for Steve Trachsel. We'll break down Trachsel's performance, have some more numbers on him that are very surprising. Stay tuned. Nissan Postgame Live continues here on Sportsnet New York after this. Hey there, welcome back to Nissan Postgame Live. More on the Mets and Cubs with Ron Darling in just a moment. But first, we send you over to David Lee. A look at what's coming up right after Nissan Postgame Live on Geico Sports Night. David, what do you have?
Well, thank you, Steve. Geico Sports Night comes your way immediately following Nissan Postgame Live. We'll have continuing coverage of the Mets from Wrigley Field, including reaction from the clubhouse. And some U.S. soccer news today. The men's national team coaching situation is about to enter a transitional period. We'll fill you in on that. Also, the Yankees are back to work tonight against their former teammate Jose Contreras, who is 9-0 in the season. We'll head up to the Bronx for a live report on the game and the newest member of the team, Sidney Ponson. All that and more on Geico Sports Night immediately following Nissan Postgame Live right here on Sportsnet New York. Right now, back to Steve and Ron.
All right, David, thank you very much. Look forward to it on Geico Sports Night coming up in just a few minutes here on Sportsnet New York. Back now with Ron Darling after the Mets 6-3 win over the Cubs at Wrigley Field to open the season second half. And Ron, in the pregame show, we talked about in the rotation glue guys. You expect to have the studs at the top of the rotation. You expect some of the call-ups and the rookies and the free agents and the desperation guys at the back end. But you need that middle guy to sort of hold it all together, and Steve Trachsel has done that. The Mets are now 13-5 in games started by Trachsel.
You know, they couldn't have asked for anything more from Steve Trachsel this year. You know, here's a guy coming off back surgery, now is 9-4. And one of the things he did great today is that he was very aggressive with his fastball. He was going right after the Cubs hitters, getting ahead of them. That's something he doesn't always do. He also looked like he tweaked with his breaking ball a little bit. It was a little sharper today, not that big lollipop that he can throw. He got some great defensive help from Wright and Floyd, of course. And the thing that I love to see with Trachsel, 79 pitches in 6 innings. He's usually around 100 when he's having a tough day. So that was nice to see.
79 pitches, 49 for strikes. He gave up that, had that 2-run first inning where they let the 1-0 lead get away, and you thought, oh, here we go. But then he retired 13 of 15 after that and couldn't have been more solid.
Yeah, sometimes you look at him and you say to yourself, you know, he's going to go through those stages where if he gives up a couple of runs in the first inning, then he's not going to be very confident and not go after the hitters during the rest of the game. But that was just the opposite today. He started getting very aggressive after that first inning.
On the other end, there's Greg Maddux. Oh, boy, he's now 2-10 since that perfect April that he had. And we mentioned the 4th inning and that double play ball that Xavier Nady broke up the double play. Mets got a run. Maddux seemed to lose his composure after that.
He didn't. You don't usually see him do that. You see him get mad out there, but then he goes right back to just executing his pitches. But, you know, when you get to be 40 years old and you go 2-10 and things aren't happening and you're playing on a club that's playing lackluster, you're going to get to a point where your blood starts to boil a little bit. And I think that's what Maddux is going through right now. He came to the Cubs and he wanted to be one of those saviors with a chance to, you know, pitch them into their first World Series in so long. But with the misplays by Ronnie Cedeno here, just was not the day again for Greg Maddux.
I see. Look at X is coming in, cleats flying on that. I mean, he's well off the bat. I mean, you give him credit for the aggressive play there, but you can see Maddux. Look at it. He's saying, we should have had that double play. I can't believe I'm still out here in that situation.
You know, in fact, he talked to the umpire and he told them that, hey, listen, they got to make that call. That should be an automatic out at first base, an automatic double play. But the umpires weren't hearing it, and it was a good turnaround for the Mets.
All right, we do have some news on Carlos Beltran. The Mets are saying that Beltran, who came out of this game today, is day-to-day with that knee tweak. And it seemed like when it happened, was it late in that All-Star game Tuesday when he had that play. They had the play on the error at third base, and he just did beat out the throw over at first, landed awkwardly on that first base bag, and sort of stumbled up down the baseline there.
You know, that'll happen a lot of times when you're just trying to leg out that hit, or in this case, the error. And he did tweak it a little bit, and you know, that's the great thing about the Mets having this big advantage, is that you can play them day to day and get them healthy again.
All right, we'll get an update on Carlos Beltran. We'll hear from Willie Randolph coming up, give you his post-game media session in its entirety in just a few minutes here on Nissan Postgame Live. Right now, though, it's time for the Nissan play of the game, and it comes in the top of the 3rd inning. Juan Pierre lining out to left, and we saw Coco Crisp rob David Wright at Fenway Park. And this play, Ron, I know that Crisp was in center, but this sort of reminds you of the way Coco laid out and took a base hit away.
He did lay out, did he, Cliff Floyd here? You have to remember, Juan Pierre, when he's up, you have to play him very shallow to left field because he's that kind of punch hitter. So good play by Floyd. He didn't really get a great jump on it, but he did a good job of getting to it.
Mets 6-3 winners over the Cubs. Take a look at the box score now from Wrigley Field and break down the numbers further for you here on Nissan Postgame Live. What jumps out at you right away, I know they won 6-3. Carlos Delgado 0 for 4, 3 Ks.
Yeah, he's really struggling with the bat right now. They're making good pitches on him inside. Valentin, of course, with 3 hits, a couple stolen bases. He did a good job filling in for Reyes at that top spot. So Delgado's got to get going. He really, he's the glue of that lineup. And once he starts going, I think they can really explode that Mets offense. So we'll see if he can get it going.
And it's gotten to the point where just before the All-Star break, you know, 10 days, 2 weeks, you think, oh, he's just in a down cycle. it's time to come out of the down cycle here if you're Carlos Delgado.
He was. An 8-game homestand, 2 for 16, so he's really struggling.
All right, when we come back here on Nissan Postgame Live, Willie Randolph addresses the media. You'll hear that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Nissan Postgame Live. Steve Berthume, Ron Darling along the way. The Mets 6-3 winners at Wrigley Field. Let's go back out to the north side of Chicago right now. And here is Mets skipper Willie Randolph after the Mets win.
Any idea on Beltran what the problem is?
No, he's going to be pretty much day-to-day. He might play tomorrow. He just had a little soreness in his knee. Probably just hit a soft spot somewhere and just a little tweak. So, you know, we sat around for a while during the break and stiffened up on him a little bit, so I just got him out of there.
That didn't predate today at all?
Not really, no. I mean, guys have a little tendonitis all the time. Sometimes it just flares up. So, I mean, it wasn't like he hurt it at a particular time. It's just something that guys deal with every day when they play. A little soreness here and there.
Will the Trachs not go anymore because of the delay after the sixth inning, or did you just feel like it was enough?
No, he was pretty much at the end.
Yeah. Did he throw like a simulated inning in between? Or?
No, he just tried to stay loose. He went down the bullpen, threw a little bit. You see him down there? You see him?
Well, I mean, he warm up obviously, but.
Yeah, but he just stayed loose. I mean, there's no other place you can simulate anything but down the bullpen. So that he was just kind of staying loose inside, and then when he went down there to throw, they were going to give him enough time to throw anyway and get loose. So he was fine.
Do you credit maybe Slide for breaking up the double play on Woodward?
Well, yeah, he went in hard. That's the way it should be. But I thought that the second baseman gave him a little double clutch, which kind of maybe threw his rhythm off a little bit, shortstop's rhythm, and that could have been part of it too. But no, that's the way you play. I'm sure the pressure didn't hurt any, and that's the way you have to go after it. You know, you don't see that too often nowadays. But it's always nice to see a guy play hard and go into the base with some intention.
Willie, good start here this afternoon. How important, if at all, to pick up where you left off, playing most of the first half, getting out of the gate here quick again?
It's just nice to get off quick, like you said. You know, it's nice to get the first one under our belt and keep rolling. You know, we've been off for a while. You never know coming back, you know, how guys are going to feel or, you know, what kind of rhythm you're going to have. But so on the bats today, Trax pitched well. You know, we're able to get our bullpen in the mix. I think it's also important to make sure your guys get going. We got Heilman in the inning. Sanchi was in there, and we were able to get Billy in there also. So with 5 or 6 days off, you like to get you guys going again, and we were able to do that today.
Willie, what did they say happened on Woody's home run? Supposed home run.
Well, again, they didn't see it. You know, it was pretty obvious that ball had to hit something hard and concrete. No way the ball's going to hit a net and fall down like that. I just went out and told them to take a better look at it, and they all got together, and obviously they couldn't agree that, you know, who saw it or didn't see it. So, you know, it's one of those things where all you can do is get them to get together and try to put 4 heads together, and none of them saw it, so that's the way it stood.
Well, do you think that was a big hit for Cliff, that 2-run double there? I mean, for him personally, the kind of first half that he had to give you guys the lead today with that goal?
Well, it's you know, Cliff has to get off to a good start. I mean, it's nice for anyone to get off to a good start, but any hit right now is big for Cliff. I mean, you know, he needs to start feeling confident and finding some holes, and so, yeah, it's big in that we get him going, but you got to sustain that. You got to keep it going. So I'd be more happy next couple of days if he continues to swing the way he does. But he had one good game today, and we're looking forward to him picking it up for us in the second half.
Are you pleased seeing the offense produce without Reyes in the lineup?
Well, we don't need Reyes to do it. We've been playing all year long with guys picking each other up. I mean, it's nice to have Jose in the lineup, but you know, there's been times where he's been in the lineup, but we haven't done much. So we feel good with the guys we put out there. Woody did a nice job again today for us. Valentin swinging the bat great. So we're a team. If you watch us all year, we pick each other up, and we don't really concentrate on one guy.
All right, that was Willie Randolph after the Mets 6-3 win over the Cubs at Wrigley Field, mentioning Carlos Beltran. And Willie did not seem to indicate that Beltran injured the knee on any particular play, attributing it more to tendonitis and just sort of wear and tear. 44-minute rain delay, I guess, when they came out, the knee was a little stiff. And sit him out for the rest of the game. Why risk it?
Yeah, a lot of times what happens with guys, when they have a rain delay like that, they'll put some ice on the knee, and maybe they just felt that once he put ice on it, maybe keep ice on it, try to get that swelling out of there so he can play tomorrow.
As they said, tendonitis, Willie used that word. A lot of guys have tendonitis here and there, so it would be very good news for Carlos Beltran. We may see him play tomorrow when the Mets continue this series against the Cubs. That'll be Glavine and Zambrano on the WB11 tomorrow afternoon. Nissan Postgame Live continues here on SNY. We'll wrap it all up. Geico Sports Night is coming up next. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Nissan Postgame Live. Upcoming schedule for the Mets-Cubs series at Wrigley Field. Coverage tomorrow, 4 o'clock. That's a WB game, and Sunday's game starts at 6 o'clock against the Chicago Cubs. And Ron Darling, got Tom Glavine and Zambrano going tomorrow. What do you see from that pitching matchup?
Well, you saw Zambrano in the All-Star game, had to miss it because he got hit in the elbow by a fungo. Boy, stay hot for the Chicago Cubs. But you see Zambrano, one of the best pitchers in the National League. See that high inning total, 125 innings. He's one of those guys that will go right after you with that good sinking fastball. And then Tom Glavine, just a great start to his season, 11-2 in their first half. He'll try to pick it up and get off to that hard start again, try to get himself to 20 and even closer to 300. And
then on Sunday, it is El Duca against what was supposed to be Mark Pryor, but Pryor went back on the DL today, a retroactive to about a week ago, so we don't know who's going to start that other game. Then you have Monday off, and then you've got Pelfrey Tuesday, so I see an opportunity in there to skip over another Pedro Martinez start.
Yeah, they'll be able to skip over Pedro because he'll be able to pitch now. Trachsel will be able to pitch on Wednesday on his regular 4 days rest on the 5th day. So Pedro's going to buy some more time, and he'll get that hip better, and he'll come back, and hopefully the Mets have seen this before. Pedro will come back very sharp.
Yeah, now it's a food poisoning. Pedro's stomach it's a little woozy. Dusty Baker's probably is as well. Let's head out to Chicago now and listen to the Cubs manager.
For the same reasons I said, before the end of the first half. And so I just think so. Simple.
Did the All-Star break drag, or were you anxious to get back?
No, it didn't drag. And I'm always anxious to get back. The All-Star break is usually a much needed time off. Physically for guys that they're a little ailing, mentally and spiritually for guys that aren't doing what they expect to do. So no, it didn't drag. Like most vacations, it goes quickly. And but yeah, I was anxious to get back too because this is what we're getting paid to do.
What's Pryor's situation and how long do you expect him to be out?
We're not really sure. He was better yesterday. He's going to throw a light pin possibly tomorrow, and then a heavier pin maybe on Tuesday. And so his chances of pitching before that wasn't very good, but he was better. The thing with those injuries is that they tend to linger, and then every time you think you're doing well, you make one wrong move or whatever it is, and it's back again. So we just want to make sure that it's gone, and he's on the disabled list. We call it Terrio, and because we needed an extra body, we figured with the off day coming on Monday, we can make it through this weekend and make another assessment after this series.
Now, I know the Cubs have never been all about winning, but here's on one side of town, Ozzie Guillen winning the World Series, is on cover of all these magazines in the All-Star game. Then there's Dusty Baker, who's not doing anything with the Cubs. Could he be in trouble?
I think he could definitely be in trouble. Remember, they won 3 straight right before the All-Star break. That might have saved him his job. Of course, Dusty Baker, one of the better managers, but in trouble now with a listless team.
We'll find out what, maybe it's something this weekend even. The Mets may have stumbled into a whole fiasco with the Cubs front office. We'll find out as the weekend goes on. We'll have it all for you right here on SNY. That does it for Nissan Postgame Live. For Ron Darling, I'm Steve Berthume. Don't forget, Geico Sports Night with David Lee is coming up next right here on Sportsnet New York.